First of all, let me welcome everyone here this evening. Standing room only. We've talked about a new town hall. You all have proved tonight this room is not big enough. I appreciate you all being here and engaged in our agenda this evening. First of all, let me say this is a Veterans Day weekend, and I want to thank all the men and women, all the brave men and women who have served our country and defended the freedoms in which we all appreciate. While this weekend will hopefully be a celebration of our veterans, it's a remembrance of all those who have come before us to serve and protect us. This is also a weekend where we may see some dangerous weather in our community. Hurricane Nicole is already hit parts of the United States. I would ask you all to keep those in harm's way in your thoughts and prayers as we continue to get through this weekend. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Hinkle if he would give us an invocation, which will be followed by our Pledge of Allegiance. I would ask everyone to please stand as we recite our pledge. Mr. Hinkle.
Bow our heads, please. Lord, we ask your countenance and blessings upon this meeting this evening. We ask that we make decisions that are in your will, reflect your will. We ask that the members be well of our community, be well served, and that we govern in a way that is pleasing to them as well as yourself. We ask that you protect those with this upcoming storm, keep us safe, and we ask that our veterans be blessed for their service to this country, both current and past, and we ask and thank you for your protection of our country and our way of life and our democracy. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Hinkle. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. At this time, Council, you have before you the agenda for tonight's meeting. I will ask Council if there are any adjustments to tonight's agenda. Staff, any adjustments?
Mr. You took yours to remove?
Item
Mr.
11.
Mayor, we would like to remove item number 11 off of your agenda. That was the annexation request of Shen Farms, applicant John Shen, 149 acres.
Okay. Any other items?
No, sir.
Okay. Council, you've heard from staff. If you agree, I'll accept with one motion and approval of the agenda with the requested amendment of item 11.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize. After speaking with the town council, if we take it off, it has to be re-advertised. The appropriate thing would be to leave it there and just allow you all to make a motion to request to defer.
Okay.
Just continue the public hearing to December. Just to continue the public hearing to December.
Okay. So the request is that item 11 remain on the agenda with a deferral to the December meeting.
That is correct.
Okay. Again, I will accept a motion to approve the agenda with the deferral of item 11 to our December meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is made, received and second. Any other question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. We will follow along our agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if anyone was here just for that, but due to the limited space, if they are, I'd like to give them time to leave at this time.
Okay. Doesn't look like there are, and you're always welcome. So we will follow on to our consent items. Under our consent items, we have two sets of minutes. We have a annexation request, AX 2212, setting the public hearing date for August 8th. We also have a couple of facade approvals and a bond increases according to Senate Bill 265. Is there a motion to approve our consent?
The public hearing date will be December 8th, right?
That's correct. Is there a motion to approve?
Yes.
Second? Motion is made, receive the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. The next item is public comments. The public is invited to address the town council with comments or concerns. The public is limited to 3 minutes. 3 minutes per individual. Speakers are required to sign in at the podium and adhere to policy 51, which is governing comments from the public at town meetings. I will first ask the clerk if there are any mail-in items or email items that were received. Okay. You want to refer to those?
Sure. This was an email from Dan Hester, and it starts out, Honorable Mayor and council members, I write to you as I opine on the November 22nd Whistle Stop Troutman newsletter. Allow me to point out a couple of things that caught my attention. There was a piece in the newsletter section, Planning and Zoning Department, titled, What is a Development Moratorium? I'm not sure who wrote this piece because the writer is not named, but it seems as though the town may be realizing this uncontrolled growth can take a breather. The piece clearly identifies the fact that commercial development is in the hands of the local elected officials, but residential development seems to be dictated by Raleigh. The piece goes on to cite North Carolina General Statutes 160D-107 moratoria, specifically to Section A, authority, which states the following. Authority, as provided in this section, local government may adopt temporary moratorium on any development approval required by law, except for the purpose development of adopting new or amended plans or development regulations governing residential use. My question to the writer of this piece is, given the above as it applies to residential development, it's very common to see large tracts of land needing a zoning change in order for the development to proceed. Given that as commonplace, the question I have is, can council put a moratorium on all requesting zoning changes? The answer may be yes, if consistent in application. It strikes me odd our elected officials in Raleigh would approve a change to North Carolina law that basically says it's free for all when any new residential development wants to take place in a supposed home rule government like I thought Troutman was. Imagine the stupidity of any lawmaker who says, according to this article, that necessary minimum infrastructure is necessary for commercial and industrial development, but it's not necessary for residential development. This law, as referred in the article, and if I'm understanding it correctly, allows these residential developers to grab as much land as they can afford while building houses without any requirements for necessary infrastructure or consequences for the destruction of the environment, impact on existing infrastructure like water, sewer, traffic, and so on. It does say in the article, so can Troutman adopt development moratorium to evaluate infrastructure needs? The writer answered, for commercial and industrial development, yes. For residential development, no. In any event, I hope the elected officials in our town are listening to their constituents about this mess they're creating. After all, you do report to the people. I have yet to see crowds pouring in to council meeting, asking council what they can do to create more traffic and more development. Nope, it's exactly the opposite. The citizens are sick and tired of this uncontrolled destructive growth. Please pay attention to those who elected you.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, thank you. Mr. Barker, any comments on the live stream? No, sir. Thank you. Would anyone here like to address the council with any comments? Okay, thank you. We will now move into old business. First item under old business is an annexation request, AX 2211, non-contiguous. The applicant is Dorothy Collins Properties. The project is River Rock on Perth Road, 28.3 plus or minus acres. The pins are referenced in the agenda. It was deferred for 1 month from our October 13th meeting. I will now reopen this public hearing and turn it over to Ms. Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you said, this is an annexation request that was deferred from our meeting in October. The property in consideration of annexation that we're looking at this evening is located at 970 Perth Road. The property is approximately 28.3 acres in size. It is not in our ETJ, and it is a non-contiguous annexation. The applicant is requesting this annexation into our corporate limits so that the consideration of rezoning of the property to CZRM for the purpose of developing a 99-unit multifamily residential project can be considered. Annexation is required before rezoning of this property can be considered. That is staff's report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to address those, and the applicant is here as well.
Great. Would the applicant like to address the council?
Good evening, Sean Cullen with River Rock Development at 517 Alcove Road, Mooresville. We were here obviously for the annexation and then for the rezoning of this, and would be happy to answer any questions you may have for the request of the rezoning, and then obviously more importantly, the rezoning of the property for that.
Okay. At this time, any questions for the applicant regarding the annexation of this property? Okay, thank you. At this time, I will ask that if there's anyone here from the public who would like to address the annexation part of this request, please approach the podium, state your name, and sign in.
Good, it's working now. Council, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'm here to talk against the annexation. I had a nice little pretty speech written up. I'm going to tear that up and just get straight to the point. My wife recommended that I do that, so it's her fault. But I also want to say I'm here as a friend of the town, a resident of the town, and a servant of the town. I wanted to see nothing but good things for the town. But let's call a spade a spade. This council is being asked to approve this annexation so River Rock can build a 99-unit apartment complex in an area of town where many think it does not belong. Troutman does not need these 28 acres at this time, if tied to what many believe is a bad deal. If approved, many of the residents that I've spoken with believe that only the seller, the developer, and Twin Creeks will benefit, that the town will not. So please, deny this annexation, kill this deal. Thank you. I did sign it.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on the annexation of this property?
Hi, my name is Sarah Bannon, and my family and I live at 988 Perth Road. Our backyard will be connected to this development. Thank you for being here and listening to what it is that I have to say. This is as bad as a plan as I have ever seen. We moved to Troutman a little over a year ago, and I cried leaving Statesville. They do more to serve the community, and the infrastructure is better equipped. In Statesville, 21 is only busy when there is an accident on 77. 21 in Troutman is a nightmare in the AM, during school, in the PM when school lets out, after work, and when 77 has an accident. This community already feels underserved and wants a better plan. They feel like you are growing uncontrollably and do not care about them at all. Troutman schools, too, have too many students, and were told by many students at the planning and zoning meeting that children are riding home seated in the center of the aisles of buses. This development is age targeted and not restricted. This is a developer way to make this more palatable by painting a rosy picture that they have no requirement to follow, nor did they even present to P&Z what the Housing Older People Act's requirements were. We are all aware of how this turns out. No developer will get pushback from a single-family detached residential building, but a commercial project next door is not acceptable to us. Make no mistake, it is not a townhouse community. There is no land ownership for the residents. This is a commercial use, a rental development. Let me ask you, would you approve this next door to you? I can answer that. The developer was rude in the community meeting and had no intention of gaining our support. From the beginning, we were told that there was a lack of ranch homes in the area. My husband opened the MLS data showing 1 in 3 homes in Troutman sold was indeed a ranch home. When presented with this number, the developer changed course, a common theme of the meeting. When questioned about traffic study and being told it takes 15 to 16 seconds to turn left from State Park Road onto Perth, most people asked when it was performed, what time of the day, of year, etc. Instead of just relying on data and standing behind it, he started showing his skill and arguing that his integrity was being questioned. Questions about method are not an assault on integrity. It often takes longer to get out of my driveway than this currently, and this TIA-placed zone new traffic from the Barium project. That is highly unlikely to be the case. The developer will say anything to get this project through, whether true or not. Back to the concern of the people in the community is not cared about or served properly. They are asking to be rezoned into Town of Troutman, and many, if not all, the neighboring properties are Troutman addresses, but within ETJ and mostly county taxes. Most of the people believe that the town only cares about revenue at any cost and not about anything or anyone else. I ask you to look forward at long-term public interest and not be short-sighted. River Rock is looking at placing 33 triplex rental units on this acreage with now only 1 entrance. Planning and zoning was very concerned about the problem this could cause if access was shut down. I understand getting 99 homes to bypass this requirement, but this is a minimum requirement, by no means should be the standard. 58 single-family homes with 1 access are much safer than the approximate number of homes that could be fit onto this same parcel per the developer and would bring in similar, if not more, revenue to the town of Troutman. They are also concerned with the area not being the correct place for this project, and they are correct. Troutman has plenty of places to approve a project like this, and this is the worst place that could be considered. Traffic on Perth and 21 is already a mess, and this will only cause more problems. I ask that you pay attention to the concerns of the people of this town and deny this project. Thank you.
Please sign in if you have not already. Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak on the annexation of this project?
Yes, my name is Patrick Bannon. I would like to camp in the town UDO and future land use map for a while. After speaking to several attorneys, town council, and planning zone members from neighboring municipalities, I was made aware that the best way to get what we wanted was to make sure that we let you know that how this does not fit the UDO or the future land map. So I'm going to focus on that. Dumb down an ordinance for people like me. An ordinance is a policy or law with penalties and or consequences, giving the town the authority to enforce these ordinances, and conversely, give the people the ability to take the municipality to court to ensure that they follow them as well. So what is in the UDO? On page 1, General Provisions 1.2 states that the UDO is designed to prevent overcrowding of land, avoid undue concentration of population, lessen congestion in the streets, and that these regulations are made with consideration with a view to conserving building values and encouraging the most appropriate use of land. This project is the opposite of what this UDO claims to strive for and in conflict with its general purpose. Page 5, Zoning Districts 2.1 states that the purpose of establishing districts is to implement a comprehensive plan and to provide for orderly growth and development, and mentions that in order to implement the purposes and intent of the UDO, that such things as building standards and permitted uses are used. So let's talk a little bit about the actual building and the standards in the UDO and how they conflict. 2.4 district standards for RM zoning is only conditionally zoned and states that in RM zoning, an attached garage must be a 5-foot minimum behind the primary facade for detached homes only, not permitted otherwise. The plan put forth by the developer has a garage on attached homes not permitted by the zoning type. They're even asking you to be zoned too. That's a conflict. Land use states, in 3.1, land use states that the specified standards are intended to ensure that these uses fit the vision of the zoning districts in which they are permitted, and that these uses are compatible with other development permitted within the district. 4.1-2 in applicability. The regulations in this chapter apply to all buildings, and these standards are considered minimum necessary standards. Administrative standards are signified by statements with variants of the word shall and must, and discretionary guidelines are typically signified with statements with variants of the word should, encourage, and discourage. So in 4.4-2, minimum design standards of townhomes or apartments, building entrances shall face the street. The design has side entrances. This is not worded to only intend larger buildings, as they are addressed later. Garages are also discouraged from fronting the street, and as discussed, only allowed on detached homes. We have another conflict. This plan does not even meet the minimum UDO requirements for CZRM. So let's move on to today's process. On page 14, 2.5, CZ districts are not intended to relieve a hardship that would be handled using a variance procedure. If no request is made petitioning to the change in the development standards, or if it is silent on this point, then the underlying standards in place at the time of rezoning shall apply. I am unaware of any such petition. I mentioned variances for the reason that CZ district is not intended to take its place. While this may not apply here, on page 95, it's also mentioned that in that case of a hardship, it may be granted only if it's in harmony with the general purpose of this UDO and preserves its spirit. Page 202 under administration C.6 states that reclassification of property into a CZ district is subject to specific conditions which ensure compatibility of use and enjoyment of the neighboring properties. We can't possibly believe this project is compatible or enjoyable to or with the neighboring properties. I'm here to tell you it's not. We have another conflict. Page 7, section 2.3-4, under RM zoning, it is mentioned that it is intended for diverse, higher density housing. By diverse, we surely can't mean restricted to 55 and older at $2,000 plus a month. This is not the definition of diverse. Page 203, administration, CZ districts shall, there's that word again, shall, be made in consideration of relevant adopted land use plans, and also states that considerations be given to proposed district appropriateness for its location, which planning and zoning said it's not, and consistency with the current land use plan, which it is not. We are currently a medium-density residential land use, and this is commercial project. Another
30
conflict.
seconds.
Also, under E8, for any approval, the town council must, there's that word again, must determine and assert to the amendment being consistent with the adopted land use plan, and why the town council considers the action reasonable and in the public interest. It's neither of these consistent nor in the public interest. I am certain that you cannot adopt a statement approving this zone amendment and be serious and seriously state and defend that this is the case. This project is not in harmony with the UDO, not in harmony with the neighboring properties, not in the public interest, and doesn't even pretend to meet the standards set forth for RM zoning or the building standards of an apartment or townhome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I also have a petition here, has 492 signatures.
And what was your name again?
Patrick.
Mr. Bannon, please sign in. Thank you. Thank you. And what I would ask is, council, Mr. Bannon's comments probably should have been referred to in the rezoning part of this. So
I raised my hand when you said annexation part. I didn't know there were going to be two parts.
absolutely, no problem at all. We will refer to those comments during rezoning as well. So the annexation piece of this will be referred to whether or not the property should be brought into the town of Troutman. The rezoning part of that is regarding the actual zoning of the property once it's considered for annexation. Is there anyone else who would like to address council regarding the annexation of this property? Yes,
Question, so we don't speak out of turn.
absolutely.
Is there a time for them to speak on the, once you get past the annexation, is there a time for them to speak on the actual?
Absolutely. There's a public hearing on that as well. You're welcome. No problem at all. Yes.
Good evening, council and employees of the town. I'm Jane Getzinger, and I live on East Mambo, but I travel Perth Road, well, maybe once a day, and it's changing. And I'm speaking against bringing this parcel into Troutman as the UDO is currently written. Attached housing is not allowed unless council overrides that provision. If the provision is changed, council continues to approve higher densities, and our community is begging for restraint. There is a need to lower density wherever there is an opportunity. Density would be lowered if the parcel develops out under its present zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would ask, again, from a zoning perspective, that Ms. Getzinger's comments be referred to during the zoning part of this as well. Any other comment regarding the annexation of this property?
I have signed.
Yes.
I have signed. I think some of what I've got is for both annexation and rezoning. I really don't know how to separate that.
Okay. What's your name?
Harold Welling. I live at 187 Winding Creek Drive. I am representing a majority of our neighborhood. We have 80% of our neighborhood that is in support of the River Rock community behind us. If I can I ask them to stand so you can see who I'm speaking for?
I will ask them if you don't mind. For those who are in support, please don't have to stand, but at least wave your hand. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've lived here in Troutman for 16 years at Winding Creek, on Winding Creek Drive. I was the fifth house in the neighborhood. And when you go in our neighborhood, we have two roads that just stop, Rocky Stream and Blue Stream Way. So when I moved into that neighborhood, it was my impression there was supposed to be a neighborhood behind us. That's what they made those roads for, so it was to continue into another neighborhood. So, so we believe we're in a unique situation here. So we get a chance to speak about the kind of neighborhood that we want behind us. So kind of our choices, the way the land is zoned now, low density, anybody could come in and build 2- and 3-story, single-family, multifamily homes. They can clear cut all the way up to our property line, put a 20-foot, buffer in with a berm and put some bushes there. What River Rock has proposed to us is putting a 40-foot buffer in, leaving most of the vegetation that we have now, so it's not going to bother our neighborhood as far as cutting down all the vegetation right up to our property lines. They're also adding a 35-foot setback from there before they start building their units. River Rock's graciously brought their units down to 99 so that there's one ingress and one egress. So another concern that we had was that other road coming in through our neighborhood. that, we'd have a lot of traffic coming in. We have kids in the neighborhood, and, we didn't know what kind of traffic was going to be coming in and out of the neighborhood. Let's see. Another concern that we do have, and the guy mentioned it, was the fact that our roads are bad in our neighborhood. Everything got finished in our neighborhood except for the roads. And River Rock is graciously going to put up $250,000 to help us with our roads. But let's put that part aside. So, the question to us, being the neighborhood, and the way that property sits now, D.R. Horton could come in and cram as many homes in that place as possible. And we would have to open up that road to get in and out. Or do we want what River Rock is proposing, 55 plus active adult neighborhood, which I think would be an asset to Troutman because we have enough of these other neighborhoods going in. I don't think it being a 55 plus neighborhood is going to fill up our schools by any means, because most 55 plus are grandparents at that point in time, but there may be a few children that, that may be there. And another thing, another thing to remember is, River Rock's a reputable company. They're right next door to us in Mooresville on Alcove Road. So why not work with a company that we could just go down the road if we had any issues, if we had any concerns, that we could go reach somebody. If D.R. Horton goes in there, you're probably not going to get anybody that you can talk to. So that, that being said, they're also in business with a couple of race car drivers, which we got permission to use one of them's name, Earnhardt Corporation. So I wouldn't think somebody like the Earnhardt Corporation would go in business with somebody that wouldn't be reputable. Along with the 40-foot buffer and the 35-foot setback, there's a stream that goes through there. They're protecting
30 seconds.
That. Excuse me?
30 seconds.
Okay. And I don't think the traffic, I travel 4 counties and all around us, there's nobody's traffic that's good. I believe they're putting in a traffic sign or a traffic light at Perth and State Park Road, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. So with all that being said, we are in support of the annexation.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, Council, Mr. I believe Wellington stated that there were annexation comments as well as some of the rezoning comments. I would ask that you refer the rezoning comments to item 8 when we get a chance to discuss that. Any other comments on the annexation, bringing this property into the town of Troutman?
Hello, everyone. My name's Chris Berger. I have signed in. I'm a 21-year resident of Troutman. I was looking up to see, I'm on State Park Road, was looking up to see when I bought my house. It was tomorrow. And ironically, I kept the hutch pin. Anybody in racing knows that. I kept the pin I signed the house with. I didn't think I would need it today for this. I think it's gut check time for Troutman as far as what we're doing in construction and traffic things and annexing. We just heard from somebody that was in support of the neighborhood. They breezed over real quick about how this thing was a bonfire of pallets burning the first time. And then the idea of, well, what if we pave the roads for you? What if we gave you, initially it was $200,000, now it sounds it's up to $250,000. I mean, that's a payoff to get this annexed, to get it moved into the city. It's kind of gross. It's you're jumping over neighborhoods to try. It was just the first lot of land. This property in 2 years will be a 100-year century farm. The house was built in 1924 on it. I said it in the earlier meetings. It was on Zillow for one day. It was bought for $1.5 million with the idea that these developers can steamroll right through Troutman. There's no stress about getting stuff rezoned. They'll just roll over for what we're doing. I think it's time that we can just stand up and figure out what the heart of Troutman is. Everything just doesn't need to keep growing. There's land adjacent to this land. They talk about it's only 99 units that was dropped down for the one access. You know, really, if we don't draw the line in the sand here, then the next neighbor sells off 8 acres. Then we add some more units. Now this 99 thing, where does it continue to grow? Where does each farm in Iredell County just turn into developed situations? So, you know, people here have spoke on laws and real estate histories. That's above me. This is full-blown heart. I'm in the back of it. Our state park and access on Pinecroft, 4 neighbors touch what this development's going to be. You know, I've been super lucky for 21 years. I had a farm in the back of animals coming up and seeing a good time. You know, this is gone. We're not talking about light pollutions. We're not talking about, I'm not in the buy-off business. Where was the 4 neighbors in Pinecroft that these developers said, hey, you know, what can we do to get you to shut up? What can we do? Can we do some setbacks on your side? Can we kick in fences? Can we do sound barriers, light barriers? The road that they've got is running right into my backyard, right into the master bedroom. You know, so it's kind of a bum that, you know, a neighborhood that's really not affected other than a border. I'm not saying because they're friends, they're neighbors. It's been a tough situation because this situation has tore neighbors apart of, hey man, I just want the driveway fixed. I just want the road fixed. And that really shouldn't be the decision-making process of who goes along with this. If I can get my driveway paved, you know, it's really should be what's happening. The access that they're acting as far as the annex with this one access point now is really on Perth Road. So the State Park Road stoplight has nothing to do with this because it's one access in and out on Perth. Like I say, I've been here 20 over years. Perth Road used to be 55 mile an hour. Now it's 45. Now if you go Bluefield up into Mooresville, it's 35. So the solving of traffic in this area isn't just knocking speed out of the road because of congestion. We got to have some sort of infrastructure bump. If we keep adding, I mean, the cut through across from Perth Bait and Tackle over to 21, I mean, there's hundreds of houses going in there that are just beginning to be built. It's still mud on the road. So how can we do traffic studies on houses that are already approved, nobody's moved into, we're not dealing with any of that stuff yet. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but it seems like we're in a growth period in Troutman, and we haven't even raised that kid yet. And we just want to keep going, and we want to keep going. It don't hurt the town to just breathe a little. Let things settle in. Let this become a farm again. It's a farm now, you know. Steve the donkey and the roosters are still crowing in the back. So we can let Troutman
30
grow.
seconds.
Thank you. And it's just a little bit of a heart gut check time. So I hope I spoke in the right time. It was very confusing. I apologize if it was something
You
wrong.
did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So anyway, just maybe the majority isn't really what this town needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to comment on the annexation request? Okay. All right, great. At this time, I will now declare this public hearing closed. Council, you've heard from the public as well as the staff and the applicant regarding the annexation of the after our foredescribed property on River Rock, Perth Road, 28.3 acres. We will now consider the approval of ordinance 2822, titled an ordinance to extend the corporate limits of the town of Troutman, North Carolina, non-contiguous. Council, is there a motion regarding this annexation request?
I'd like to make a motion that we deny the annexation.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to deny the annexation of this property. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
A motion is made, received a second to deny the request. Any question or comment?
the comment I'd make is that I spent a lot of time over the last few weeks debating this thing. You know, it's come up, and you know, I've got a lot of emails, first from this group that stood up tonight, really negative, to now they're real positive, you know, at their payoff of the roads. But I went back and I looked, and I kind of looked at my fellow council members, some of the things they said in their time when they ran for office on balance and smart growth, that they want to see that. And this is a target of 55 and older, but I struggle to find a benefit to the town of Troutman for this 55 and older. And the reason it is because I see if there is 55 and older, it's targeted, so there may not be any, but if they do, when they come out of that neighborhood, they can't walk to Troutman, so they're going to drive down to 150 to do their shopping. I don't see a benefit to Troutman. I've driven down 3 miles from there to here. And the other thing, so I looked at target 55, we have in this, already approved for this town in the close proximity of walking distance to downtown Troutman, which is not a whole lot downtown, I'll admit, but we have Rocky Creek at 54 acres targeted for 55 and older. Their homes that'll be sold to be built right off of Byers Creek. Brookside, down here on Georgia Street, this side has a lot of, several homes targeted 55 and older. There'll be one-story houses. Then over here today, I just went back, because I saw it the other day, and I went back today to make sure I didn't have some kind of mirage. Over here on Perry Road, at this Norwood Walk, there's now several, real fast, they're starting to put them up. It's a rental area for leased properties. They're one-story rental houses, which meets the need of what this neighborhood's gonna do down the road. Then there's the Meadows, which is the apartments that have been opened up down there, but I won't go through, there's all kind of first floor units in that neighborhood, walking distance to downtown. In addition, in the downtown at Bering Springs, we put 750 restricted 55 and older neighborhood, a trilogy neighborhood. So we've got all that in downtown, and when I look at that, I'm like, I just cannot see the benefit in this area. Plus, I have never, in the 3 years I've been in office, and the 3 years before that in planning and zoning, anybody come up to me in this town and say, I need a one-level house targeted 55 and older to move into. I've just never had anybody ask me for that. And yet we put this many in here. And as I look at this, and I just don't believe that, because Twin Creeks, while I appreciate that they have a problem that needs to be fixed, it's between them, a developer that went bankrupt, and the county who pushed the license through based on the notes I saw. That is not something that the town of Troutman ought to be doing in our decision on whether this neighborhood is a fit for Troutman. We should not look outside of our area. We should say what benefits Troutman and what is the things around Troutman. And not even to mention that triplexes, as in duplexes, are not approved in our UDO. So we're putting these in triplexes. And if you look at the whole neighborhood, agreeing with the planning and zoning, this area is just not in harmony with all the neighboring properties in that area to put this targeted family area that far out of town and say it benefits Troutman. I've drove down there 4 or 5 different times. I sat there and looked. I've had a lot of sleepless nights. I just cannot see the benefit of this neighborhood to the town of Troutman. And so therefore, that's the reason I'm opposing annexation.
Okay. Any other question or comment? All right, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposition? No.
No.
No, the motion was to deny.
Oh,
Correct.
motion's denied. Okay,
Correct.
so you threw it out. You said
Yeah,
for.
for your motion.
Okay, yes, I'm for that motion.
I'll do it again, just so that we are clear. All those in favor of the motion to deny it, say aye.
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 Those in opposition, no. The ayes have it. The annexation request is denied. At this time, we will not consider the rezoning because it's not annexed into our property. Would that be correct, Ms. Hare?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your input, council. We will now move into item number 9, which is considering accessory structure facades for detailed image. I'll take a moment for those of you who are here for either the annexation request or rezoning. If you'd like to leave, you're welcome to do so. I'm hoping we don't have that much more on the agenda now that most of my comments.
But they all live in, anyway, open lakes. Thank you for coming.
I'm gonna stay for him. Oh, this is my new friend. He's number 9.
Okay. As the last few people leave, we're going to go ahead and get started. Still got a pretty full agenda. The next item is to consider accessory structure facade for detailed image collision and customs. The applicant is Chris Ellis. The case number is in your packet, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Hare.
Yes, sir. This is an application for property located at 697 North Main Street. What the request is this evening is the approval
Go somewhere.
of elevations of 2 carports that are located on the property. The design review board has reviewed this and is recommending approval. This is a picture of the structures that we're considering this evening. And just to give you all some background on this, these carports were placed on the property originally without a permit. The property owner claimed that he was incorrectly advised that the structures did not need a permit.
Ms. Hare,
Yes,
one
sir.
moment. Sir, at the time that you're allowed to speak, you can sign in at that time. You don't have to do it before. Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Hare, thank you.
Sure. Again, just to give you all some background, the carports were placed on the property originally without a permit. The property owner has claimed at that time he was incorrectly advised that the structures did not need to be permitted. Current staff did review this application when we came on board, and we required that these structures comply with the ordinance requirement of going before a design review board for facade approval of these carports. The design review board did review them in September of 2021, and at that time they recommended approval. And as part of our DRB process, whenever the DRB approves something, we bring it to this board for final approval or before council. We did that on October the 14th, I apologize, 2021, not 2022. And those were approved, or excuse me, at that time the council recommended that the applicant bring these structures into compliance with the side yard setback. The structures are located in alignment with the building on the property, and they encroached in that side yard setback by about 5 feet. So the council at that time asked the applicant to bring them into compliance. After discussing with the property owner, Mr. Chris Ellis, what he wished to do to bring the buildings into compliance, he stated that he wished to maintain the structures. He was of the opinion that moving them 10 feet into the property would be unattractive, and it would minimize the amount of usable space he had on that property. So on October the 18th, Mr. Ellis went before our Board of Adjustments, and he was granted a variance from the required 10-yard side yard setback, which allowed the accessory structures to remain in their current location. The granting of this variance brings the structures into compliance with the UDO. So this evening, staff is bringing this request back before you since the applicant has complied with bringing them into compliance, and we are recommending approval of the elevations as the DRB has recommended also. If you have any questions, I'm happy to address it or answer them, and the applicant, Mr. Ellis, is here as well.
Any questions for Ms. Hare?
So the Board of Adjustments, you said the variance of 5 feet, is that, they're still within 5 feet? They're off the line by 5 feet?
Yes, sir. They are still in the same location.
But it's 5 feet off the line, which, because I thought when we heard it last year, they were right on the property line, but so they're 5 feet off.
They're about 5 feet.
Yeah, they're 5 foot 6 inches.
Okay.
There's a ditch there that makes it the appearance that it's on the property line, but it is actually off the
Okay.
property line.
And so the Board of Adjustments was good with the 5 foot?
Yeah, that they were in agreement that they felt like moving the buildings in the 10 feet would make them look like almost they were sitting towards the center of the property, and it would be unattractive and would go against what the DRB had recommended.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Hare?
I just want to let you know, being on the DRB board is when this first came to my attention, well over a year ago now. That's how long this has been going on, if not longer. And it was a interim planning and zoning manager that we had at the time that incorrectly gave some information, I'm afraid, or gave information that perhaps was just not quite concise enough, I'll put it that way. And these buildings were placed where the gentleman thought, the owner thought that that was, was okay, recommended, met our UDO requirements, and he was satisfied with that, and so, and to move them would be kind of an egregious to the usable property, and also more money out of his pocket, because it costs so much to move them in the first place, and then more later on, and I remember even back then thinking that's it's not right if someone on our staff gave information that was followed, and it proved later on not to be correct or perhaps misleading, then that's on us, not necessarily on the owner. In this case, that's what I believe. Each case has its own different decisions to make. So I feel this is justifiable and in the interest of both the town and the owner to allow this to move on, in my opinion.
Any other questions for Ms. Hare? Okay. If not, is there a motion to consider the recommendation by the staff to approve the accessory structure facades for detailed image, collision, and customs? Motion's on the floor to recommend approval or accept approval of the facade. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is made, receive the second. Any other question or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. That item is approved. The next item on the agenda is the rezoning request under new business, CZ HI 2203, North Fork Business Park. The applicant is Leon Bowens, I believe, Junior, 38 plus or minus acres. The PIN is 474-2123-520, 164 Nugget Lane, from suburban residential to conditional zoning heavy industrial, CZHI. I will now declare this public hearing open and turn it over to Ms. Hare.
Yes, sir. This is a request made by Leon Bowens, as you stated. The property in question is located at 164 Nugget Lane, which is off of Murdoch Road. It is currently zoned RS Suburban Residential. It is in the town's ETJ. So even though it's not currently in our town limits, it is in the ETJ, so we do have zoning authority over this piece of property. They were requesting that the property be rezoned to CZHI, which is heavy industrial. We want to point out that all new HI districts do require conditional zoning, so the applicant's requiring with that requirement, or the requirement of the UDO. The purpose is to allow for the 38-acre parcel to be developed as a multi-tenant, multi-building industrial park. The location is on your overheads, highlighted in red on the aerial photograph. You can see that it is directly on Murdoch Road. This is a copy of our current zoning map, which shows the property and the current zoning of the site. You can also see that there are parcels in the area that are already zoned industrial. In the gray area, you've got CR Onsrud, as well as the Walmart Distribution Center in this area. There's also the concrete plant very close to this site as well. And the hash marks, that's the site that was recently rezoned to a similar zoning district a few months ago for a multi-tenant flex space HI building as well. The land use map shows the current land use of the property, which is shown as rural agriculture. You can see a very distinctive line here that goes from the heavy industrial, the employment center, into that RA district, rural agricultural district. This is a copy of the concept plan that the applicant submitted as part of their request. This is conditional zoning, so if this application is approved, the site plan will be part of the approval and will be attached to the property. The applicant, I'm sure, will go into more detail about this site plan in their presentation. A TIA was required on this project. They did complete that. The TIA has been reviewed by NCDOT. As a result of that review and approval by DOT, there are a couple of mitigations that will be required of the applicant. I've listed those in your staff report and on the overhead. I'm sure the applicant will get into more detail about the TIA. I believe their traffic engineers may be here this evening and can address these issues. The property is not in a watershed. However, due to the size of the project, the town will require on-site BMPs. With the conditional zoning, a community meeting is required. This was complied with on August the 30th. There was a community meeting held here at Town Hall. There were roughly 10 neighboring property owners in attendance. There's a copy of the community meeting report in your packet. Concerns that were raised at that meeting had to do with traffic, who the proposed tenants may be, buffers, and compatibility with residential properties to the east of the site. After reviewing the request, staff is recommending approval of the project. CZHI is compatible with adjacent properties. The site is adjacent to heavy industrial zone property, a light industrial zone property to the east, and the Walmart Distribution Center facility is in close proximity, a little bit further to the east. It's unlikely that rural residential agricultural uses will be in harmony with the surrounding uses that are in the area. We are thought that they're not compatible with the existing future land use map. Recent changes in land use have occurred in the area. And again, it's unlikely that these properties will develop for low-density residential. I want to point out that our UDO also contains regulations and requirements that will safeguard and ensure the quality of development on the site. Our planning board heard this at their last meeting, or their meeting in September, and the board unanimously recommended denial. I have provided you with a copy of their statement of reasonableness and consistency, just so that you have that in front of you and can see what their reasons there. They felt that the property was not compatible with the land use plan, the future land use plan, and there were inconsistencies with the TIA. That is the end of staff's presentation. and recommendation. If you have any questions, I'm happy to address those. And I believe the applicant also has a presentation that they would like to share with you this evening as well.
Okay, before I turn it over to the applicant, any questions for Ms. Hare? Okay, the applicant is here. Would the applicant like to address council? Yes. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council staff. We appreciate the opportunity to present this property for potential rezoning, North Fork Business Park. As was mentioned, it's a 38-acre parcel on Murdoch Road. And this was working? Oh, okay, all right. I have with me the developers of the project. To my right, Butch Ballance, who's a developer but will also be the builder of the buildings on site. To my left, I have Peter Casatelli and Tony D'Alessandro, who will be developers and also own the property that was just rezoned adjacent to this one to heavy industrial use.
I'm sorry, sir. Will you state your name?
Sam Barnett, I'm the real estate broker for the transaction. Sorry about that. We have the subject property here in blue. As you can see, it's basically surrounded by industrial use. You got the Barium Springs project behind, which incorporates an industrial component, as well as you can see on both sides of our entrance is already zone industrial. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just 6 heavy industrial uses just on our side of the project here. So we feel that this project would be in harmony with the current zonings around it. We had a traffic impact analysis done by Kimley Horn, as was mentioned earlier. The TIA that was done performed following all national, state, and local standards. The scope and parameters were approved by the town and by the Department of Transportation staff, including site, trip generation, and distribution. The results were reviewed, TIA approved by the town and Department of Transportation staff. The recommended mitigations for this project was a restriping for an exclusive left turn Murdoch and Amity Hill, and construction of a 100-foot right-hand turn lane on the Murdoch Road site access. Did you all have any questions regarding the traffic? That we have a representative from Kimley Horn who can answer any questions you may have about that TIA.
Any questions on the traffic study?
I do have one. I noticed the mitigation out at exit 45. That was turned down by the state. I saw that in some of our documentation.
After further investigation, it was deemed not necessary, but if you'd like to go ahead and speak
yes.
about that.
So we coordinated with NCDOT.
And what's your name?
I'm sorry. I am Thomas Shirley, 200 South Toronto Street at Kimley Horn. I'm in Charlotte. And so, yes, we coordinated with NCDOT, and after discussing mitigation alternatives with them, they, I guess, decided that a mitigation at that intersection was not required as part of the TIA.
So right now, the only thing really, as far as mitigation, is Old Murdoch Road, right-hand turn lane.
Yes, so we have the right turn lane into the site, and then we have the restriping at Murdoch and Amity Hill to allow the right turn lane. Since obviously most of the traffic there is heading.
Right-hand turn lane into the facility, or to the
yes,
complex.
correct.
Any other questions regarding the traffic study? Okay.
And I would clarify, I know in the initial presentation, they said it was only approved by NCDOT, but this town's consultant as well as NCDOT did approve the TIA.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a brief overview of our plans for the property. Our plan is to put up Class A warehouse flex buildings, real nice product, stucco exterior, we know there's been some concerns from the residents regarding noise, which we take very seriously. And so we wanted to communicate to you all that we are using what's called an insulated metal panel siding, which is a steel sandwich with 2.5 inches of foam inside it. It's a really good sound insulator. We're also making sure that our exterior doors are well insulated to minimize noise. We currently have a park down in Mooresville that we're just wrapping up before hopefully doing this project, and we have absolutely no issues with noise. We have residential neighbors right behind our park there and never had a single complaint in all the years that it's been there. So I just want you all to know that we do take that very seriously. We've talked in length about what we can do to try to minimize our impact for our surrounding neighbors. Another concern from them was about light pollution. We focused a lot on the technology that we can use and putting together a comprehensive exterior lighting plan so that we can try to make sure. We know that there's already some issues with some of our heavy industrial neighbors that have some light. You've got the Walmart distribution center that has a lot of light there, the concrete plant. And so that's something that we're really focusing on, is trying to make sure that there's no additional light, if at all possible, that would affect our neighbors. We're also going to have a very strict owners association. We want to make sure that our building owners are going to comply and make sure that aesthetics are kept up. You know, some of the developers here are going to have their own buildings in here, so it's not like we're just going to build this and run. This is a project we're going to be a part of and have our own buildings. So we want to make sure that it's kept nice, it's clean, it's kept up well. And we want to make sure we have attractive landscaping within the park itself, but especially for the surrounding neighbors. We want to have as much as we can as a buffer visually. And two partners to my left will go into detail about the landscaping. They actually, not only are they developers on this project, but they also own large landscaping companies. So I'll let them talk in detail about the plans for landscaping.
Thank you very much for your time. My name is Peter Castelli, and I would just like to tell a little bit of background about what we're planning on doing. We own Della Casa Landscaping. It's located in Mooresville. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mazeppa Road, but if you go down Mazeppa Road, our current building is probably the nicest landscape facility on all of Mazeppa Road. We're surrounded by best products, and there's a lot of commercial buildings on that, and what we strive to do is have one of the nicest buildings in the area. We plan on doing the exact same thing here as well. Not only are we partners in the 38 acres, but we also own the adjacent 5 acres that's immediately to the left of this property. And we're gonna actually kind of owner operate that. So it's really important to us that not only does our standalone building look good, but all the buildings that are within the 38 acre parcel of land, it looks like it fits the area. As we came down here tonight, there was a lot of accidents on 77, so we normally, when we come here, we'll normally take exit 42, but we were forced to take exit 45. And as we came down there, I could see, why people are concerned with the Walmart distribution center and the concrete plant. But I can assure you, if you look at our current buildings or South Fork, you'll see that they're probably some of the nicest maintained buildings in the area. The other thing is, with our business that we have, and hopefully opening another one, we employ over 60 people in Ardell County. And we're able to give great jobs and great, place to work for local people. A lot of our employees actually live in the town of Troutman. So I think a lot of times when you hear industrial, you think of, Pittsburgh and, 1970s with, acid and stuff drying out. I kind of think more of like family-owned businesses, which we currently run. I think, when you think of a business park, I think it matters. It's very important that it's partially owner operated, number one, and that it's being run by the right people. I think if there's a heavy owners association that holds a higher standard, it's very important. So that's all I'd like to say.
Thanks, Peter. We did have several, since we know it's a conditional rezoning, there's several uses that we're not going to need to have permitted, so we were just going to offer those now to have those eliminated as possibilities. Adult establishments, hazardous materials use and storage, landfill, outdoor entertainment, outdoor sales, animal services, fairgrounds, yard sales, and essential services class 3, which could be power plants, water treatment, and sewage treatment, which is, that's been our concern, that the heavy industrial name could come across as some pretty significant use. And I feel like a lot of those types of uses that maybe visually picture with smokestacks and things like that, that's not what we're doing here. We're just doing, nice looking warehouses. And I know that we've interacted with some of our neighbors at our community meeting, and there was some concerns about environmental impacts and things like that. And 3 out of 4 of us are Iredell County residents, and I'm soon to be an Iredell County resident. And we want to keep the environment nice. It's important to us anyway. And water quality was something that was brought up as a concern, and we wanted to address that. At the last town council meeting, Adam Lippert said, Troutman has one of the cleanest water supplies in the state of North Carolina. And that was on October 13th. And for us, compliance with the Clean Water Act and Safe Drinking Act, it's a top priority for us, especially with the landscaping and everything else. I mean, it's a big part of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to be a good neighbor. We really are. We're not trying to come in and make anyone's life worse. We really think that between the landscaping that we're going to be doing, the minimal impact with regards to noise, traffic, I mean, if you compare to having an apartment complex or something like that, the traffic is really going to be a lot less. It's a pretty minimal impact. We're going to be monitoring for noise issues, air pollution, water pollution, chemical dumping, which is some of those concerns that we've had. And I know, and you may have this addressed by one of the neighbors later, there were some concerns that one of our neighboring properties had hexavalent chromium tested in their water, which caused a great concern for us. We wanted to make sure that, and that concern was that it was coming from heavy industrial use that's already here. So we investigated that to make sure, is there an issue now? We want to make sure that it's not something that we would be contributing to, and making sure that we're not causing that issue. So we did some research on hexavalent chromium, and it turns out that, also known as chromium-6, it occurs naturally, and this is from the EPA website. Chromium-6 occurs naturally in the environment from the erosion of natural chromium deposits, and it can also be produced by industrial processes. So it can come from either way. The maximum permitted by the EPA for drinking water is 100 parts per billion. And that's including the 2 types of chromium. There's chromium-3 and chromium-6. And that's a total measurement adding those 2 together. And just kind of for reference, to give you an idea of the actual impact of hexavalent chromium in this area, 100 parts per billion is the EPA, and even our super strict friends over in California, they've reduced that down to 50 parts per billion. To give you an idea where we are at in North Carolina and our general area here, the national average is 0.4 compared to 100. In North Carolina, we're 0.06. And what we would consider to probably be near us, the highest impact of heavy industrial use would be Statesville. And even Statesville, with that high amount of heavy industrial use, they're only 0.09 in the parts per billion. So we really feel like, especially since we're not really doing a whole lot of impacting type use, but even with that heavy industrial use, we really don't feel that hexavalent chromium is something that needs to be of a concern for this development. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for the applicant?
From conversations with some of the neighbors, I just have a couple of questions around, one, even though it's going to be zoned, I know you were asked if you would drop it from heavy industrial to light industrial, but would you consider, I mean, you said no, would you consider that there's two or three buildings right there immediately behind the homes to sure that's light industrial, but there's such a really fine line between what we call heavy and light, that if we could say right behind those neighbors' houses would only be light industrial.
We don't have an issue with that.
We don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, and I kind of thought, maybe on the conversation we'd had a long time ago, that
Yeah, months ago.
that,
Sure.
that if you had something that was gonna be a little bit noisier or something, move it, you know,
Move
put
it
it
to the back.
to the
Put it-
back properties.
Yeah,
And
put it
that would be
someplace
one.
else, yeah.
The other concerns, that when I asked them, what were your concerns, the other one that I had noticed was between your buildings and the houses, some kind of the barrier, whether it's a berm barrier or something, so they didn't, their comments to me, they didn't want to see it, hear it, or smell it, or impact the water.
Well, there'll be no odor issues from any of the uses.
And that's what I was really thinking, and I didn't see a concern with the water.
And we have a berm planned already,
Yeah, I was gonna
and that's
say.
something that we've actually offered to meet with the neighbors. So
Because
far,
some
that's,
of them, they may, whether it's the berm. or the
right, and that's actually, we have that pictured
But
here.
Yeah, if you could do something.
That's actually a raised berm. It's, maybe you can't see it as well in that photograph. But we're planning on going beyond what is required for our barrier there. And we would invite the opportunity to have that conversation with our neighbors and talk about, you know, what can we do to make this a little bit better? You know, so you can't see it. You know, we got our professional landscapers here. We're happy to have that conversation.
And I went down to see your properties on Mazeppa, so I can say I saw those, and I feel like we can make this work, but there's some issues I did, and so I drove out and made sure I see where the neighbors live, where his buildings, and I went back to the drawings, think, well, if we address these three, we get away from those, and anything that would create noise, which I don't know that I see that much, but I was told that it could be, push it to the back.
Yeah, I mean, we got very well insulated buildings,
Yeah,
and
I
typically
saw
in the
that. I
other
thought that was
park, we don't
great.
really have anything that causes significant noise at all. I mean, if you drove through the park, you probably noticed that it's pretty much silent. But yeah, I did want to clarify with that, on that border there, we haven't finalized our lot lines exactly. And so, you know, I know there's a few pictures of some smaller buildings there, which was our intent, to have some buildings about 18,000 square feet there. I wouldn't want to commit us to having those exact buildings on that line, but if we want to come up, I don't know how you guys draft your rules, but we can certainly accommodate not putting heavy industrial on that border. I just don't want to box us in that we have to be in the specific
Yeah, that's
sizes
right.
and
Yeah,
things
I'm
like that.
not doing, I was just looking at, keep away from where the homes are.
Yeah.
Because you're only talking about that one area.
Yes.
Push them back, you move the retention pond back, which I let them know the retention pond was just surface runoff anyhow, it's not.
Right.
Well, there's certainly be some restrictions on where we can put that with water flow. The engineer's obviously going to have to approve that. But with regards to, you know, coming to an accommodation with that, that's fine. That's not going to negatively affect anything we were planning on doing anyway. So happy to do it.
And we want a buffer for ourselves as well, for our building, especially the one that we plan on operating on. I mean, the concrete plant is so loud and so noisy, we want to try to buffer that noise as well.
Yeah, you do that, it might help the neighbors live down there, because the place is concrete building.
Yes.
Yeah, and I didn't see anything that you had going from what I, conversation we'd had that would ever resemble anything like that. So you would be actually helping that
Yes.
problem.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Buffer you're showing, how high is that? The buffer you're showing right there, how high is that buffer?
I mean, it's tentative, but I would say that those green giants are probably 8 to 10 foot. You probably have a 3-foot berm, so you're probably, 11 to 12 foot of.
At planting. So about a 3-foot berm and then vegetation
installation.
above that.
Yes, top rows on that could be 30 to 38 feet tall.
Is this kind of an example of what you're proposing?
Yes, it would be.
You and especially the residences?
Yes, it would be dense screenings. You would not be able to see any of the buildings from any of the neighbors' homes.
You would be willing to, depending on what happens tonight, be
Absolutely.
willing to sit down and talk with them?
Absolutely. My goal, if you went on Mazeppa, is to have the nicest looking property. I mean, that's what we do for a living, so our goal is to have the nicest looking property on Murdoch Road.
This doesn't necessarily, but let me ask you, the most of, I think what all of us have been receiving, concerns, from folks in that area, is what I consistently hear, common thread, is the HI designation you're requesting. And yet, and I know this was asked back in P&Z, I reviewed the minutes and so forth, and when you were first asked, light industrial, you thought about it, you said, yes, you thought you could live with it, but then you came back later and said, no, you'd rather keep the HI. And, you're addressing most of the concerns that are covered under HI as far as environmental impact, and said that you would not do these things. Is there any reason, just to put it in black and white, what you're actually agreeing to do through restrictions and go with light industrial?
It's because of the size of the buildings, or some of them are too large to
That-
fit in the.
Okay,
Heavy industrial zoning is required if a building's over 150,000 square feet, and we anticipate, we have a client that's interested in building a 200,000 square foot building, which is completely on the opposite side of the park from these houses.
so outside of building size, that's the only reason you're asking for the HI designation?
Well, they would, I mean, the 200,000 square foot user will be doing some manufacturing. So we would need the heavy
But again,
industrial
it's
use.
manufacturing that would not need an HI designation to manufacture. It's just, again, building size.
We're not 100% sure, based on exactly how your zoning is, that we would be able to be compliant with that based on their particular use, and we would not want to necessarily box ourselves into that. We have a high focus on making sure the noise is not an issue and things like that, but we don't feel comfortable making the whole property light industrial use because of that. We really need to keep that open. And, you know, we don't know what our necessarily potential customers that are going to come. We need to make sure that we have these buildings that will be able to do what they need to do with and not make our buildings not as marketable.
I understand the building size. You know, again, it's the environmental impact that's
Sure.
obviously concerned, not necessarily the building size, 150 versus.
For sure, yeah, and we try to address that with the hazardous material storage and things like that.
It's just the environmental impact.
Sure.
And I want to not only assure myself and these members, but also the folks who be living in that area that you know, we're looking at being environmentally responsible.
100%.
And that don't be misled by the HI designation that you folks are agreeing to terms that would bring you onto being environmentally responsible and really a light industrial designation as opposed to an HI designation as far as environment is concerned. Environmental damage.
I think we did the same thing with the rezoning of the other property, the 5-acre parcel. We just said the conditional use was no hazardous storage chemicals.
That's the 5 acres.
Yeah, and nothing, you know, obviously, and I realize you're covered under EPA and state.
Sure.
And so forth, DENR and so forth, but no pouring on the ground, no way of contaminating water, you know, no way of offending the land, if you will, to put it in a general
For
term.
sure. I mean, Butch has built, around 100 some buildings, most of which are in Mooresville. Talbot Point, if you're familiar, done over 40 buildings there. Handful buildings in Lakeside. You know, he's got a great reputation for 25 plus years in this business, being great to the environment. I mean, he wouldn't have the reputation that he did. If you've been through our parks, they're very nice places. These are not toxic waste dumps by any stretch of the imagination, and they're certainly not going to want to have their buildings with landscaping and things like that for their business next to any sort of environmental hazards, because they are literally going to be the ones that are next to that larger building. So.
Mazeppa, Talbot Park, any other in
That-
the Mooresville area that you're located?
South Fork Business Park.
Well,
South Fork Business Park, Talbot Point,
Okay.
Lakeside, am I missing anything?
Lakeside.
Yeah, Lakeside.
Mazeppa, not here Mazeppa?
Well, South Fork is off Mazeppa Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I developed South Fork Business
Okay.
Park about 15 years ago.
Any other questions for the applicant?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, right, but moving from the light industrial, which like you said, your 5-acre parcel, moving up to this parcel, is the main reason you need the HI, right, is the size. So would you be willing to do the same conditions that we did on your 5-acre?
We've already offered those conditions.
Yeah, as long as it's heavy industrial.
We actually offered more conditions. The only condition they had on the 5 acres was the hazardous material use and storage, and we've added all these additional exclusions on top of that. So this would be more restrictive than the current rezoning that you already did.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now open it up for public comment. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to comment on this rezoning request? Please state your name.
Steve Vang. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Town Council. My name is Steve Vang. I'm one of the many residents off Murdoch Road. Today's the Marine Corps' birthday. Happy birthday, Marines. I served 8 years in the Marine Corps, deployed to Ramadi, Fallujah, also TQ, fighting for our country's freedom, where we are exercising tonight. I came home from war to hope and live in peace. That's why I moved to Troutman, in hopes to settle into a small town community and raise my daughter and grow my family. My hopes and dreams have turned into a nightmare. I don't know what's worse, my severe PTSD of the VA diagnosis me with, or the thought of not being able to live here in America, in my own property and in peace. At our town community, the first town community we came to, Leon Bowens told us and my neighbors that if you don't like what we're about to do, then move. I took that as a threat. All the money that I earned in the service and from being overseas, I invested into my home. My blood, sweat, and tears into making my home, making my house my home, and now I'm told to move because of someone else's greed. How would you feel after serving the nation honorably and going to war? If an industrial factory gets built behind my backyard, I fear for my health, the safety of my child. I ask you all to uphold the oath to the people who you represent and to vote no to the rezoning of this land behind my home. Ask yourselves, are you for the people or are you for the greed and for the agenda of others? Thank you. Good night.
Thank you for your service. Anyone else? Anyone else who would like to comment on this rezoning request?
Yes, sir. Yes, my name is Hans DeBoe. I am a Troutman resident. I am also a business owner in Mooresville. I've grown up in this area for many, many years. Butch himself has produced 2 buildings for me. I own 2 properties in Talbot Point Business Park. I employ over 150 people. I have been instrumental in Mooresville development. I was honored to be the 2015 Businessman of the Year for the town of Mooresville. So the whole point of industrial, the whole point of developing the town is obviously to bring people, to bring employees, and to grow the town economically as well as industrial so that we can produce higher level growth in our town. That's what the whole premise of doing this is. I personally am interested in purchasing 2 pieces of property in that park. Again, I am a resident of Troutman, so I have the utmost importance in developing of this land to protect our property. Obviously, my wife is born and raised in Statesville. We're North Carolina born and bred, so the fact that I know the kind of operation that these folks put together, I know that they are attentive to detail. You are more than welcome to look at both of my facilities, which Butch did manufacture. One of them is brick front. There is tremendous amount of landscaping. I am in manufacturing personally. We have no noise abatement problems. We are fully functional with the EPA. We deal direct with OSHA. I am a certified AS 9100 manufacturer as well as an IATF certified manufacturer within Mooresville District. I welcome the fact that we're trying to grow Troutman. I don't think that anybody, at least in this group that I know that I work with, and that I have the interest, if it was not for the best of the town, that I would not be interested in buying either of these properties. I understand that there are things around and people are concerned, but I know from my experience and I know who I am as an individual, the last thing we'd want to do is interrupt the physical health, the well-being, or any ability for the gentleman, the veteran, and thank you for your service, to be able to do and raise his family in a peaceful environment. Obviously, you know Murdoch Road, we have the fairgrounds, we have C.S. Onsrud. Charlie's obviously been a part of this town for many, many years, and there has been industrial business there, including the school and so on and so forth for many years, and has not caused any problems. With the cement factory and, of course, the Walmart distribution center, it obviously has gone heavy industrial and it's surrounded around this area. I just wanted to give my piece to say that I know from the people that are involved, and I know that I employ a lot of people and I want to bring a lot of economic development into our town, have been instrumental in bringing other companies out of state to North Carolina, working very close with the North Carolina Economic Development groups. So I feel very confident in the program that they are working on, and I'd kindly ask you to approve the zoning permission for heavy industrial. And thank you very much.
Anyone else like to comment on this rezoning request?
Good evening. My name is Krista Sharp. Nice to meet all of you. I am actually fairly brand new to North Carolina, and my family and I are beyond overjoyed to be here. And we are building our hopefully forever home here in this darling town of Troutman. And we are really looking forward to raising our 2 children here. They're very small. And the reason we picked this entire little town is because it's quaint, it's family oriented, and we moved all the way from the West Coast to be here. So my heart was a little heavy as I just prepared this short statement for you guys. There are plenty of other parcels of available land in this area that are more suitable for industrial use. Do we really want the main entrance off of 77 to be industrial factories? People want to see places where they can stop in town and spend their time and money. Where will all of these new residential developments shop and spend money? Not in Troutman. Because we don't have anywhere for them to spend their money. Thousands of new rooftops are going in this town. Let's utilize this space for the betterment of the people of the town of Troutman. Let's find a way to service this community. Let's plan appropriately for the available resources and build something that the whole community will benefit from by building light infrastructure, retail, professional services, and shopping. This heavy industrial building will serve minimal purposes for the people who live here and are moving here and have moved here. Retail and public services are desperately needed in this town. These new residents will have to go to Mooresville or Statesville or elsewhere for their needs. I ask you to fulfill your oath and be the voice of these people. We really don't want this here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment on this rezoning request?
Sit too long. Tim Mills, 360 Murdoch Road. Whenever the now Walmart building, when it was started being built, a lot of talk around town, and people I would see sometime out, they would go, "Boy, your land value's really gonna go up now," with the Walmart building being down there and everything, and there are probably going to be employees down there or some type of, the upper management probably don't want to buy your house and buy your land and all this stuff. I hadn't had one person knock on my door yet. Nobody stopped by. And so I look at this and I look at the people around me who have been here for a long time, and I think about the fact that, our land, I got like 2.5 acres, almost 3 acres. Most of the other people around got the same thing. And I'm not a very smart man, but if you do the math on what the land was kind of supposed to be sold for on the other side of the road, then it's not even going to cover if an industrial or whatever comes and asks to buy our land across the street, or beside them, the people who live on the other side of the road. Then just buying the land's not even going to cover half or even a third of what the actual home would cost. What would a corporation want with the home? They're going to tear it down, right? So they got 2.5 acres, 3 acres of land. So are they going to pay $500,000 for 2.5 acres of land? No. And so when you start looking at all the people down through here that are going to be affected by this, I don't see how it makes good sense to put an industrial park over there. And let's get real about the whole thing. They can throw a show on. I can sit up here and talk. It all comes down to one thing, and that's that. They want to make money. I want to retire where I'm at. I'd like to stay in my home and stay over there. But the fact is, done figured out probably, I'll never get to retire and stay there the whole time. The town of Troutman, I've been here from, in this area all my life also. The land that we're looking at right now, that is my great uncle Max. I baled a lot of hay off that land. He worked that land and farmed that land, and then finally him and Aunt Mabel, they lived down at the end. Finally they moved in here to Troutman. They're off of Old Murdoch, and then his son who lived beside it in Clayton. Clayton got it after that, and it was still being used for agriculture. And then after Clayton passed away, his mom passed it on down to Rick, who is my cousin. And then up until, I think the last probably bale of hay on it was about 2 or 3 months ago. I know that it all comes down to money, either way, one way or another. But you also got to understand that there are other people who have been here a while that would like to see their legacy carried on the same place. It was mentioned the last time, or the first meeting we came. I asked the question to the people, what would they do if it was at your house? What would they do? And Mr. Bowers made the comment, and he said, yes, I would move, because that's what I did. Well, thinking upon that, I thought, well, you know, probably he did move because people up there were, you know, he lived up north. He said he's the one who lived up north. So, and I've always said this, tell my brother-in-law all the time, he moved down from up north. He lives down here. I said, yeah, y'all ruined everything up there. You come down here with your same ideologies to do things, and you end up ruining everything here too at the same
30
time.
seconds.
So I would say this. I hope that the old saying doesn't go. I can't see it from my house, so it really doesn't make any difference to me. Thank you.
Anyone else like to comment on this rezoning request?
Yes, sir. Good evening, folks, Mayor, council members, town staff, Mr. Duck. Not much of a person who prepares, but we try to do our best on this. There's some actual things that I may amend as I go.
What's your name?
I'm sorry. My name is Charlie King. I am also a 15-year-plus resident of Troutman, and I have 5 points of interest that I'd like to share with you guys tonight. First of all, there's many land opportunities that are sitting down by exit 42. Just an unofficial count, I've counted over, if you guys could please take a look, there's over 100 acres. There's also infrastructure that's down by exit 42 and everything that would support a heavy industrial project. If it was to come to Murdoch Road, you would almost have to start from scratch. There's not enough there to support this. There's a failing water infrastructure. There's nothing there to support this. Now, I may be coming from an amateur's point of view, but the predecessors to all of you council members had set this up very nicely at exit 42. I'm at a loss. I just believe that this would be a much better suited opportunity to be there. Also, just a quick comment, that's why everybody sits down to put together the land use maps. And it just seems like they go this way as soon as somebody comes along. Responsible and calculated growth and development for the town at this time is critical. And that's something that needs to be heavily weighed upon and considered. Property valuations. It will, no question, devalue what we have, devalue what we have. We trust all of you, board members. Some we've recently met, some we don't know. But we're all trusting all of you with the most valuable asset that we own. And we've collectively offered multiple solutions that might be better suited for this land. Some of them were warmly accepted, some not. It's not a matter of that, it's just a matter of we all see something a little bit differently. And again, it was mentioned, the town desperately needs retail services, professional services, and alike. We got a lot of new roofs, a lot of new people coming into town. And Mr. Jerry, and I apologize, I can't see your last name, had mentioned something once that made terrific sense. People come to wake up, sleep, and eat breakfast in Troutman and go to Mooresville and Statesville to shop and buy what they need. That needs to stop. There needs to be a provision put here. You have a very crowded main street. You have an opportunity to develop an area over there that would make fantastic infrastructure for the town. Give people a place to go have a meal. Give people a place to go for professional services, what have you. Environmental impact. Developer has stated that there's not manufacturing on this proposed park. Well, I heard tonight there is. It's a first for me. I've also heard recently, as of tonight, that we're not going to store hazmat. My question to you folks is, and to you all as well, if there's going to be automobile storage and possible race car or motorsports manufacturing, am I correct?
Please address the council.
Yes, sir. With that being said, all of those industries have hazmat materials. You have to store them. You don't have a choice. And I apologize, I got a little bit out of step here, so let me just back up a little bit. Each time we discuss the contamination issue, we've always been given an option of, we'll just fix it later. We'll call the EPA, we'll call a cleanup crew, we'll do this, we'll do that. A lot of us over there are on natural resources. We're there by choice. We like our well water. We're also beginning to have a problem in that area over there because it's now turning into a brown zone. If I have my terms correct, I may not. But there's already issues. I ask you folks two things. In your experience with industrial parks of all kinds.
30 seconds.
Yes, sir. Have you seen an industrial park that doesn't have manufacturing? And number two, have you ever seen an industrial park that leaves the land, environment, and resources in better condition than when they came? The building, the owners, the property, all the management, that's all great and wonderful. They all have employees. They wash down things with degreasers and chemicals. They run down driveways. It rains. It goes down storm drains. Things happen.
Time's up.
Thank you, guys. I wish I had much more time, but I appreciate what I had.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else like to comment on this rezoning request?
Yes. My name is Jessica Williams. And I would like to present, before I start speaking, I would like to present a petition that I had presented at the planning board, if I may.
Present that to the clerk. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Williams. I'm here tonight to present factual evidence as to why a heavy industrial park is a potential environmental safety risk, unfit for this area of town, and how it will be detrimental to the people and families who live here. One fact that is known about heavy industrial parks, they all produce some sort of waste byproduct. This proposal clearly states that it will involve motorsports. This particular industry is at an extremely high risk for environmental pollution. According to the World Health Organization and Iredell County NC.gov, a single quart of motor oil can pollute 250,000 gallons of water if not disposed of properly. Automotive batteries are hazardous due to toxic metals and acids. Lithium batteries are extremely poisonous and highly combustible. A typical auto battery contains 18 pounds of lead and a pound of sulfuric acid. Antifreeze contains heavy metals in high enough levels to regulate it as hazardous waste. Inappropriate disposal can cause detrimental water quality problems and is harmful to humans and wildlife. Used motor oil, brake fluid, leaded gasoline, and other toxic chemicals used in motorsports require special handling and disposal, according to the EPA. Along with motorsports, there are several other manufacturing businesses that are proposed to be housed here. But we have no idea of the extent of these industries because Leon Bowens and Sam Barnett have not truthfully or entirely disclosed that information to us or you all. They stated to the planning board that they would not budge for anything less than heavy industrial zoning. Why? What specific type of industry will be conducting business on this property? What type of chemicals or hazmat waste will be used, created, stored, and disposed of here? As per Troutman's UDO, section 9.8.4, under approval process, the application for conditional zoning district must include, but is not limited to, a concept plan and supporting information and text that specifies the actual uses intended for the property and any rules and regulations, conditions that will govern the development of the use of the property. All of that specified information is yet to be presented to us or you all. I have a radioactive substance in my well water. It's called hexavalent chromium. According to the CDC and the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, hexavalent chromium is carcinogenic and poses an extreme health risk. This contaminant is only caused due to the byproduct from heavy industrial waste, the type that is in my well. Somehow it has made its way into my water supply, which I have legal rights to. Since I have brought this information forward, it has come to my attention that many others who live around me have now also had a baseline water test because they are afraid of adverse health risks. If an industrial facility is built in my backyard, my family and I will be forced to ensure proper liability and accountability is held from the developments and the township that it lies in. We will retest our water to see if further contamination is present, and we will find the source. Some may argue that we should tie into town water and sewer. My question is, who will be paying for the switchover for that type of utility? Should it be my responsibility for the negligence of others? It is ultimately my right to have clean, safe drinking water from my well without someone infringing on it by acts of contamination. Here's another fact. Iredell County has a farmland preservation plan right here on the screen. Here's the proposed development circled in red. Here is farmland preservation in green. It's also located on the GIS mapping in iredellcounty.gov. This is circled in red. All of this in gray is farmland preservation. Heavy industrial facilities placed in farmland preservation
30 seconds.
as per the 2030 Horizon Plan, Policy 3.1 and 3.2 under Protect Natural Lands, Rural Lands, Maintain Rural Character, it states the county will support efforts to protect rural landscapes in Iredell County and will revise its development ordinances to ensure the new development in rural portions of the county maintain and enhance rural character. Heavy industrial facilities placed in farmland preservation will not maintain it will not maintain and enhance the rural character of Iredell County. Mayor, could I ask for 50 seconds?
Yes.
Heavy industrial facilities placed in farmland preservation will not maintain and enhance the rural character of Iredell County. The fact is, heavy industry never leaves the environment cleaner than it was before. These developers are overlooking the people and the residents of this community in the name of profit. This particular developer and his real estate agent stated in the community meeting to the residents concerned about their property value and the safety, and I quote, "If you don't like it, you can move." Is economic gain more important to the town of Troutman than residential lives and families? What price does the town of Troutman put on the health of its people? We have seen the ill effects of coal ash in this county already. It would be a shame for Troutman to be the next topic for environmental health and safety concerns from irresponsible development. As per Troutman's UDO section 9.8.9, Zoning regulations shall be designed to promote the public health, safety, and general welfare. How do you all determine this development to be reasonable
Expired again.
and in the public's interest? The council represents the voice of the people who live here and the 200-plus people that have shown on the opposition for the petition. We ask you to vote accordingly. Please don't allow this residential area to turn into a 38-acre brownfield in the name of economic gain. Thank you.
Ms. Williams.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to comment on this rezoning request?
I would. I have not signed in. My name is Joey Elliott. I live at this town resident. I have really nothing to do with Murdoch Road that much, but we sat in a couple of these town meetings and just listened to them and the builder. And the only reason why we were here is because we were off of State Park Road and dealt with the development off of Perth that you guys denied town annexing. That developer, they went and they would meet with us and they would try to do everything they could to please us. I mean, $250,000 for our road and our development, right? These people here, they've been teeter-tottering. It seems a lot of smoke and mirrors to me. There's nothing in writing saying they're going to do this. There's going to be these trees this tall. All they showed was a picture. When we talked to, I believe Lynn, right? Earlier, like when the start of this whole process for us, she was saying that we needed to get everything in writing before it gets zoned, because once it passes zoning, you got no say. They can do whatever they want once it's zoned. There's no like setbacks, agricultural stuff. All they said was, yeah, we'll do it. Up here it says, oh yeah, we'll do this. Oh yeah, we'll change those buildings to light industrial instead of heavy. But where is there anything, pen to paper on it? And then you go and pass it, these people could be led this high in water, you know, dead in the water, and they got this big industrial building in their backyard.
Just to answer your question, Mr. Elliott, if they agree to certain conditions, it does have to be passed by council. And it
Okay.
could be in writing. So
Okay,
just
so like the stuff with earlier where they were trying to say, oh, well, we'd do it, but yeah, we'd do this. So it
Correct.
would have to be in writing before you guys will pass it
approve
for them.
Exactly, that's correct.
Okay, my other thing would be just the height, right? I mean, 4 feet. I mean, come on, a little berm like this tall really ain't doing anything.
And to clarify, you're talking about two different things. What Lynn was talking to you all about and/or others was something that was in the county that has nothing to do with the town of Troutman. This property would be in the town of Troutman that we would have complete control over. So it's two different things.
Okay, I just didn't want to leave our neighbors high and dry.
Totally understand.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I just want to make sure there was pen and paper and stuff, and,
Totally understand.
you know, that's all. Thank you.
Appreciate neighbors looking out for neighbors.
Yeah, that's all.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else who would like to comment on this request?
Chris Berger again. I really, you talked about neighbors. I just stayed to support these guys, and I wouldn't have contributed except I came here in the '90s to work in NASCAR, and these guys, I've shut down a lot of race teams over the years. The buildings that they're talking about are nice. I've worked in a lot of them, but what I found humorous in 4 buildings, I've worked in Lakeside Park and Talbot and even out in Mazeppa. I worked in one as a race team, and then it became a spring manufacturing place. I worked in one as a race team, and then later I worked in, it was a defense contractor. Just think a little bit of what it is today might not, is what it's going to be later. So it's always funny to get fired in the same building and in 2 different businesses, but I've been there. So I can speak to what they're saying in building. They're honest, and the buildings are nice. The stuff is nice. I'm just saying for the town itself, what's in today, and they're really not sure what's going to be in it, and I can respect that. You're trying to get a park going. You don't have people in it yet. So you're going to have restrictions, but maybe 5 years down the road or 10 years, you got another council and you're trying to get another line of business in it. But if you stop it now, you're never going to have somebody come back later. So maybe another guy like me won't get fired from the same building twice. So that's all I had. I didn't mean to interject, but thank you.
Would anyone else want to comment on this rezoning request? Okay. Thank you. I will now declare this public hearing closed. Council, you've heard from staff, from the applicants, and the public regarding rezoning request CZHI 2203. Now we will consider approval of ordinance 3022 titled an ordinance changing the zoning classifications of the after described property from suburban residential to conditional zoning, CZHI, known as CZHI 2203, North Fork Business Park. And if you agree to approve it, I would ask that you also list and agree to any conditions of the applicant at that time. Is there a motion regarding the approval of this ordinance?
Would it be possible to discuss the conditions before we ask for motion?
Yes, we can do that. You want to start with your...
All right, so I know we got the what was on the slide, the non-permitted uses, adult establishments, so on and so forth. But I know we really only qualitatively discussed the buffers, boundaries, right, and property lines and what you plan to do. So, oh yeah, we're going to take care of it. How? I'd like numbers and...
Could we put the slide up where it shows the buffer?
Sure. I hope.
Not
I said sure, I have no
that
control.
one. It shows the lots. It's a different slide.
That wasn't on our presentation, that was on the other, that was on Lynn's presentation.
You're talking about the concept plan?
Yeah. Go all the way around. Keep going.
Yeah, that's it.
Right there. So there's where we have that.
Would you like to come up?
So the buffer that we were talking about, these are the residential properties of the neighbors.
I may have done that,
I didn't
sorry.
Oh.
Here we go.
These are the residential properties that are, the neighbors are here. The buffer is gonna go from here all the way up to here, which is what buffers the residential.
Right, so we do have, right, our UDO does have a required setback for heavy industrial when bordering and a residence.
Yes.
Right, so,
And that's been our engineer factored in that when we talked about the setbacks. I don't know if it's 50 feet or whatever it is. I know it's been addressed, that would be compliant. Obviously, we have to be.
right, and so, I guess is the thick squiggly line, is that your?
These are the trees right here.
Right, so these will be, what type of trees?
Green giants.
Green giants on a berm. How tall will the berm be?
So we could do it as high as whatever we agree to. I mean, I think ultimately if we agree to just one certain height, obviously from the time of planting, it's just going to continue to grow. Even if you started off with an 8 or 10 foot arborvitae, they will get to be 30, 40 feet tall. They're dense and they're evergreen. They're not deciduous, so it's never going to lose its leaves. It'll have the same density in July as it does in January.
Plus, all the other buildings will also have landscaping and plantings around them for screening required by the town.
Mr.
All right.
Oxshire, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Oh, no, by all
I
means.
just wanted to clarify that the buffer requirement between industrial and residential is 50 feet, and there are planting requirements where the plants have to be a certain size when they're planted, the trees, and they have to be a certain percentage deciduous and a certain percentage evergreen to ensure that there's a buffer there year-round.
Okay,
So
that's
that is
great.
in our ordinance.
A lot of times if I don't hear it, then I don't think
But
it
those
exists.
specific
type of trees are not in our plan, but if that's what you all agree to do here tonight, then that could be.
We plan on landscaping, but the reason why it looks like such a small area on that map is because that's the only portion of the whole land that actually backs up to residential. Everything else is all already zoned industrial, so that's why we focus just on that immediate area.
That was the reason for my question a while ago, was trying to get some idea, going by your picture. That
Yep.
picture looked good, it looked like it was absorbing, it looked tall, it's something that, someone looking out their window is not gonna be looking at an industrial site. They're gonna be looking at vegetation, and obviously the UDO set aside landscaping for heavy industrial that is very comprehensive for obvious reasons, especially where it backs up to, so again, piggybacking on what Jerry says, just want to make sure that, the berm is of a sufficient size, whether it's 3, 4, 5, but, to me, starting off with something at least 12, 13 foot, at least. Now, it's going to grow. You're exactly right. In a few years, it's going to be way up there, especially in the case of evergreens and so forth, deciduous type of growth.
And we would agree
I'm just looking for, again, the aesthetics of it, and again, understanding it's a building that's already constructed for sound absorption, but also, in addition, the buffer, the vegetation will absorb any extra sound that may emit even from the outside, so parking lots or something going on outside on a temporary basis.
So that I'm clear, let me start with two items because it sounds like you're talking about two. One is the size of berm. Are you asking for a certain size berm? I think they are offering 3-foot berm.
3 foot, which that should, forgive me, I'm trying to go back to we had a similar discussion regarding debris with another, I'll say similar type project, right, in town. And I know that was a major concern for the surrounding residents. So 3 foot, I'm trying to harken back to what we did there. I'm not even sure if that was conditional. I wasn't even on the council. But I mean, at 3 foot, is this something that would potentially help with what? Didn't have enough sugar.
We would be willing to go even higher if we started, because obviously, like I said, the trees are not going to be as big when you first plant them. No matter how big they get, you have to space them out a little bit, just so obviously they're not growing on top of each other. We would be willing to even go higher with the berm if that made council more comfortable, because that's instinct, right? That's, as soon as we build it, it'll be instantly.
Yeah, I'm not terribly concerned about the trees, because we have some in our neighborhood, and that's something that our HOA has done, and I've seen how these things, they turn into walls, right? So I'm aware of that. It's more about the actual berm, the earthen, that we start off with.
We could start off with a 5-foot berm and plant on top of that.
Is that your?
6 feet.
So if we did that on top of a 5 to 8 foot tree, you're starting off instantly with 10 feet.
Well, I had thrown out a while ago, 12 to 15.
Well,
You
that's okay. We
have your
could go
berm
as
3 to 4, and your seat.
So
as big as you feel.
Let's just start with the berm for right now. So you're asking for a 5-foot berm.
5-foot berm.
Okay. Will you all agree to a 5-foot berm?
Yes, we will.
Okay. Size of the tree. So to Mr. Hinkle's point, you are asking for whatever it is, it would go to at least 13 feet. So was that 12? You said 12 to 15. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you're talking to me, excuse me. I'm
Yes.
sorry, I thought you were talking. Yes, 12 to 13, yes.
You're talking total
On
height.
the vegetation itself, that would be the starting point.
Oh, on the vegetation itself?
Yes, berm underneath that of 3 to 4 feet, whatever. 5 feet.
We're at 5 feet on the berm. So I'm sorry, again, you said how tall vegetation?
I'm saying 12 to 13.
Could you all agree to 12 to 13 foot vegetation?
Could our total height be 13?
If it's a 5-foot berm and a 7-foot tree, it would be 12 foot tall.
Well, you know, again, I'm looking at a height of around 15 feet. You know, the vegetation itself, you know, I'm saying 12 foot. You got a 5-foot berm on top of that. You're at 17 feet. You know, I was thinking in terms of around 15 feet as far as starting point, all together, total, sum total, berm and vegetation.
We could,
The,
yeah, we could.
the problem is those trees are like $1,000. That size would be about $1,000 a piece, and I don't know how many feet we have there, but it's, you know, how many feet we have there.
Can you estimate the growth rate on a green giant?
Yes, a foot, between a foot and 18 inches per year.
For the first year, and then they go up about 3 to 5 feet.
And just for clarification on the ordinance requirement, the plantings in a buffer have to be, there's 6 large maturing trees and 40 shrubs every 100 linear feet. So I don't know how many feet that is, but that could be quite a number of trees.
Does it speak to the size?
It just says that they have to be 8 feet from the ground
So
at
8 feet.
maturity.
So if you did a 5 foot, they only would need to be 3 foot.
Right. So, could you do
We could put, you know, between 5 and 8 foot.
could you do an 8-foot tree?
Yes. Yes, we could.
Can you live with an 8-foot tree with a 5-foot berm?
You're talking about 13 feet.
I'm talking about 13 feet.
You know, if that's, you know, again, you know, what I keep going back to is, to me, the buffer they showed a while ago in that picture looked very nice. And I'm thinking in terms of something like that. Obviously, they're gonna grow, they're gonna spread. So starting off, there are gonna be gaps in there to allow for that growth and spreading. But, I would like to at least have something, you know, close to 15 feet. So 13 feet, you know, if that's, and within a year or two, they're gonna be up beyond the 15 that I had thrown out as a starter.
Okay. All right. So, other conditions?
Okay, I just want to make sure that Lynn has these, the ones they put up earlier, the 2.5-inch foam in the walls for noise, exterior lighting plan to prevent light pollution, the ensuring compliance with aesthetics and cleanliness, those kind of things you had there. There was a whole page of them. You had no hazmat storage or sewage treatment on the property, compliance with Clean Water Act, Safe Drinking Water Act, which I think they have to live with, strictly enforce noise, air, water pollution, chemical dump storage, outdoor tire storage, trash and debris. And then the last one I think that you agreed to was those three buildings near those residences, no heavy industrial.
I do
And I
have,
think that's what you guys had marked and agreed.
So you rattled off about.
Yeah, and those are the ones they have listed.
Well, to
Okay.
clarify, we didn't want to make sure that we don't specify in your conditions that it's specifically 3 buildings of this size. We can agree to a building that's on that property line, but we can't commit to how many buildings that's going to be. We don't know exactly what size they're going to be, but we can agree on that border.
Okay,
to
so you're
light
saying
industrial
the
on-
building's very, but in that area where the berm is,
Anything right here
in the berm area,
that we can do light industrial here.
there'll be.
But I can't say it's gonna be this size building, whatever, but we understand the residents' concern here.
Okay,
And we're
That'll be
not
light
an issue
industrial.
with putting anything on this line right here as light industrial.
okay.
And just to clarify with regards to these conditions here, it was mentioned about heavy, chemical, hazardous chemicals.
Yeah.
In your rules for the heavy industrial chemicals, would race fuel, for example, count as a hazardous chemical? Because if that's the case, for regular motorsports use, we would have to forego the hazardous chemicals if you all are gonna consider those hazardous chemicals for this.
So, one moment. Michael, can you go back to the list of conditions that they had? So on this list, it has hazardous materials. Is this what you were reading off?
No, it was the other one that, they had another one that had 2.5 2.5 inch foam walls. It was the one that had all that stuff in it. This is in our UDO. I was looking at the one that they had up.
So this one.
That's it right there.
Yes, these things here were things that they agreed to. This page here.
So you want these as part of your conditions as well?
Yeah, especially the ones with the noise, just the noise and light and the landscape, all those, the cleanliness and upkeep of the properties. Yeah, that was what I thought should have been. The other parts is there, but those were things that I thought should have been conditions. And then the other one was the at the residential, near the bermed area, light industrial only.
So to make it, I'm gonna try at least to make this easier. Would you all consider this page here part of your conditions?
It was not our intent to have it as our condition, but I guess the only concern I would have, the measurements on the insulated metal panel siding, it's 2.47. I'm not exactly sure what the exact measurement, it's approximately 2.5, but I wouldn't want to find out that we have to go up to a 6 because ours is 2.4 and it's not 2.5. But we can agree to the insulated metal panel. It's a steel sandwich with.
It doesn't say 2.50.
Yeah, that's right. I know, but it's 2.4.
Significant figures.
I don't want that to rule. Can you put a plus minus?
Do approximate 2.5.
Approximately.
I don't have the magnifying glass. If you're 2.5, you're reasonably 2.5.
I'm assuming you pulled this from a spec, from a manufacturer.
Yeah, we talked to the manufacturer.
So that we're clear, if you're gonna accept this, you do want to put plus or minus. Gary, help me with the language. I assume we don't want 1 inch foam core, but we also don't expect 6.
Could we say average of 2.5?
Yeah.
I mean,
There are 19.5.
Yeah, just nominal.
The R value is 19.5. So you may,
So is it better just to say an R value of 19.5?
do that, yeah.
Okay.
Because that automatically gets its wall right around 2.5
Of
inches.
19.5.
Or 2.5 nominal. I mean,
Yeah,
nominal
there we
gives you
go.
that wiggle room.
Thank you for the language. Or, so 2.5 nominal value. Okay, so it's this slide that they're agreeing to. Your other point was that Michael,
they
hate
had it
to,
on, what is it?
if you can go
strictly-
back to the slide with the buildings on it again. So the slide here would be, could be entered as a condition without the buildings on it, but just to say that any buildings adjacent to residential properties would be light industrial. Is that what you're asking for?
May I just inquire, because I don't know, there is no residence on the first one to the right of,
That's already zoned industrial.
This right here,
yes.
this is zoned light industrial already.
No home.
There's no house.
There's no home there.
Okay, okay.
So you agreed to that?
Yes.
Okay. Other conditions?
So we just say just adjacent? Is that how we need to word that? Or do we need
Yeah.
to add a radius or something like that? Or how do we put that in?
So again, my thought is that we would use this map as a attachment, and it would say something to the effect of any properties or any buildings along this property line would be light industrial that are adjacent to residential property.
We can do that. We can actually create a map that shows it real clearly if you would like us to as well.
Right.
And use that as an attachment.
This map would be a guideline.
Yeah.
Right.
The guideline
We
is opposed to
can
coming
do
up with
something
a
that shows the
radius or,
zoning.
you know,
Yeah.
degree or anything.
Right. Okay. Other conditions?
Just response to the no hazardous material and storage. Think back to my background, environmental, really looking more at that hazardous waste that comes out of you. I'm just going to have a tank there that meets all the Clean Water Act standards and everything. Those tanks, you know, don't be an in-ground tank. You got a storage tank that has to meet requirements today as it gets inspected. But it's the waste from there is where we're looking at storage.
I wouldn't think there'd be any waste.
Yeah, like your used oils and stuff like that you get rid of.
Yeah, I mean, safety clean, I know safety clean goes to the race
Like,
team.
safety
The race
clean
team
usually comes in and
real
cleans.
strict. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the race team, they don't spill things.
I mean, when I think of hazardous material, I think you have big tanks that you're just keeping stuff there, or you're living a bunch of buckets and drums and stuff like that sitting there. That's what
Yeah,
I
that's
see when I
outside
think of it.
the building.
That's the way our code would read, because otherwise your cooking oil, Ajax, things that you have in your house would be hazardous
Right,
materials.
and that's what, so I
Exactly.
just want to clarify that they're going to have some things that would be hazard, but it becomes waste, it becomes the issue.
Yeah.
Well, you would include just about many businesses, light commercial,
Yeah.
privately owned businesses
Yes.
downtown.
And they got
That's some
certain
stuff
rules for
that's,
storage
you know,
of new stuff.
So again, I look at reasonable.
Yes.
You can look at anything and come up with whatever you want.
And that's what I was trying to address when he wanted to make sure it didn't say he couldn't have materials that he has to have.
Right.
And it's really looking at the waste side of, that you don't just leave drums there to the lake. You know,
So again, I think the other slide is,
it addressed it.
it's addressed it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other conditions?
They had one that they mentioned, and I wrote it down here about, and somehow this satisfies it, that the management, whoever the manager of that properties will make sure that there's enforcement with noise, air, water pollution, chemical dumping and storage, outdoor tire storage, and trash and debris, that management does inspect those buildings for these things, if you had on that list.
Yes,
Yeah.
it'd be absolutely.
I mean, that's, that would be no matter if it changes the managers or whatever down the road, these are things that should be inspected, because they're gonna get inspected by a state anyhow.
So
And,
it's-
and just like outdoor tire storage, the county already has an ordinance that you can't have so many tires that's uncovered, meaning they have to be in some type of container. They can't just be uncovered tire storage that everybody has to follow.
And like I told one of the neighbors, if you see things like this, you can call it into the agencies and report this stuff.
That's correct.
That's why the management's responsible for keeping that taken care of. If you see drums sitting out there unidentified.
Correct.
So again, this is one slide. Michael, can you go to the slide that they had their conditions? Okay. And you agree to include this slide as well as conditions?
Yeah, as long as the hazardous materials we talked about isn't going to prohibit from normal operations,
Yeah.
reasonable businesses.
Okay.
Dan and town manager, can y'all put in something, as long as it's within reasonable usage, as far as the hazardous. I mean, you can go in my basement and I've got gasoline and oil, I change the oil in my car.
Call them in.
I mean, again, that's why I say I look at reasonableness. You can look at anything with a microscope, and come up with something. So, you come up with something to where, within normal business operations,
Yes.
and then understand where I'm coming from with that.
And proper storage.
Yeah, along those same lines, what exactly does animal services entail?
Scuba man?
Scuba man.
No, just kidding. We had a customer that does that for a living.
We got this off the list from the county. We just went down the list of things we knew we weren't going to do. Dog kennels, indoor dog kennels is what I think they're referring to.
Okay. Because when I think animal service, first thing pops into my mind is just like a groomer. Like,
Probably nothing to do with animals.
Yeah. So this will be in there as well with a little bit of additional language on the hazardous materials. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other conditions? All right. So, again, council, you have heard from the public, you've heard from staff and the applicant. For us, discuss conditions, as this is a conditional zoning. Is there a motion regarding consideration for the approval of ordinance 3022?
Mayor, my recommendation, I have a recommendation for y'all that this probably ought to be continued till December meeting. In the meantime, these potential, I realize if rezoning is denied, it's denied. But the statute requires that the conditions be in writing. And I think that you need to have this clear before you in writing if you do pass the rezoning with conditions. And therefore, I don't think you can do that tonight. I think you should continue it till December and have it prepared by staff in the meantime so that you can consider it as a part of your motion in December.
Great, thank you for that clarification. So, council, with that legal knowledge, do you feel appropriate that we delay this or defer this until the December meeting where we will see the actual conditions? Although we see them tonight, but there's some that I think need to be tweaked a bit with the list of conditions.
I would concur with that continuation, sir.
Okay. And we'll need a motion on that.
Make the motion.
Well, do we?
Continue until December's meeting with a written list of conditions that we have discussed tonight before the motion is made to whether to rezone or not rezone.
Okay. Motion's on the floor that we will consider the approval of this ordinance 3022 once we see the conditions at our December 8th meeting. Is there a second?
A second.
Motion is made, received a second. Any other question or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Folks, we do have some more business to conclude.
Yes. I'm not sure I heard that, but.
Okay, can you repeat? This gentleman was shaking hands.
I would say the input that you would need to do is to, again, I think you heard most of the conditions tonight. I would say take those, go with the neighbors, have that conversation, and between now and December, have that conversation with these council members. Right, you could either call them or have that conversation before then, so that there's a change, we can make that change at the time of those conditions. Mhm.
Hey, where are you going?
We're taking a brief recess. I'll get Jerry back. I know. I will now declare this public hearing open. And I believe Chad is here. I'll turn it over to Chad.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Young and members of the town board. Thank you for the opportunity to present Project Houston Road for an economic incentive request. I am Chad Thomas, Vice President of Economic Development with Iredell County Economic Development Corporation. Joining me in attendance tonight is Jen Bozer, President and CEO of Iredell County Economic Development Corporation. I would like to thank the town manager and staff for their help during this project. The project required coordination from multiple departments, and we are appreciative of the town's responsiveness. Project Houston Road is an industrial development project by Collett Industrial. Headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina, Collett Industrial is a full-service commercial real estate firm with over 30 years of expertise in development, property management, leasing, brokerage, and tenant representation. Collett has assembled 3 parcels off Houston Road to build up to 3 industrial buildings totaling approximately 700,000 square feet. The buildings will have 32 to 36 feet ceiling clear heights. The project has proposed an investment of $50 million and require approximately $2.1 million in public infrastructure improvements, including a sewer extension, road improvements, and the relocation of electrical lines. Time to market is critical to the decision-making process to lease or purchase a site or facility, and having available product within your community will aid in securing future investment and jobs. Projects like Project Houston Road can accelerate the timeline and mitigate risk associated with a site for a potential project, and is instrumental in helping a competitive project select a location. Increasing product availability will help the town of Troutman to support the growth of local industries, the attraction of new businesses, and with the creation of jobs and investment. Iredell County Economic Development Corporation requests an economic incentive grant to Collett Industrial for up to $624,000 based on a capital investment total of $50 million. The grant is performance-based and would be payable over 3 years based on 80% of real property and tangible personal property taxes paid. The grant will be applied to eligible public infrastructure improvements that meet a public benefit as defined by the town of Troutman, including public infrastructure improvements that lie within the public right-of-way. Payment is tied to the assessed value of new increment generated from the private investment by the company. On behalf of Iredell Economic Development Corporation, I want to thank the town board for your consideration of this grant and would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. This time, I will ask if there are any questions for Mr. Thomas regarding this incentive request. Okay, thank you. I will ask if there are any public comments regarding this economic incentive request. Hearing none, I will now declare this public hearing closed. Council, you have heard from Mr. Thomas, our IEDC Vice President for Development, regarding this request. You have, in a closed session, been able to review this request. I would ask, is there a motion to consider approval for this economic incentive request?
I so moved, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is made, received a second. Any other question or comment?
This is a formal motion that you've been presented.
Yeah, you want us to read it?
Yeah.
That would be the motion.
Okay.
Does he, Paul, if he wants to read it, I can.
Can he refer to it, or does he have to read it?
Read it.
Okay, thank you.
I like the formal motion, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I have to hear Mary. Thank you very much. I move to approve the economic incentive grant of no greater than $624,000 over a 3-year period with a maximum amount per year of $208,000 to Collett Industrial for Project Houston Road based upon a capital investment of $50 million and a minimum investment of $10 million by December 31st, year 2026, and for a public benefit, public infrastructure investment by Collett. I further move that the incentive grant be based upon 80% of the real value and tangible personal property taxes paid. I further move for the grant that the investment shall be initiated within 12 months from today, and that a shell certificate or certificate of occupancy shall be obtained by December 31st, year 2026. I further move that the economic incentive grant is conditioned upon the execution of an incentive agreement within 180 days of today.
Will you pull your second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion is made, receives a second. Any other question or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We delay that until next month. The next item on the agenda is the Town of Troutman future land use map and definitions. I will now open this public hearing, turn it over to Ms. Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the screen, we have a copy of our land use map as it currently exists. This map was adopted in 2018. Just to kind of give you an idea of our project timeline, if you all recall, back in February, we had a strategic planning session, and at that time, we discussed the need to update our land use map. So the council gave staff direction to go ahead and start this project. And in April, you all appointed 2 members of council to serve on our subcommittee and to direct this process. So Mr. Harris and Mr. Oxshire graciously helped with this entire thing. And then in May, an advisory committee was also appointed, and we kicked off our initial meeting in the project in May. We also began meeting monthly at that time. We had a public input session in June. We had a stakeholders meeting in July, and then a second public input session was held in August. At that time, we did present the draft map to the community for comment. Both of the public input sessions were advertised. Even though we didn't have the outcome we were hoping, we did have a pretty decent turnout. We had good conversation, good comments from those meetings. And then we went, after the September public input session, there were some comments from that meeting that we felt like needed to be addressed. Several members from the community came, asked us to make some changes. So we took those back to the committee for final conversation in October. So after a busy summer, many meetings, many months, we were meeting 2, sometimes 3 times. Tonight we have before you the draft map that the committee has put together. So back in February, there were 4 priorities that council asked the staff to focus on. One was to reassess the location of our commercial and industrial areas and provide the town a map that reflects the shift in these areas and our interchanges at exit 42 and 45. To analyze the Barium Springs property at the time when we started this process, it had not been presented to us for rezoning, so we wanted to see how that would fit into our land use pattern. And then we were asked to assess residential densities in relation to the availability of utilities. And fourth and not least is to provide staff with an updated map that adequately reflects the goals of the community and council and that can be used in making educated land use decisions. One of the things we did as part of this process is we did create a survey. We used SurveyMonkey. We posted it on our website. And we had a QR code that we got from there, and we put that in our newsletter. We also had it on our Facebook page. And we got numerous responses, probably well over 100 survey results. One of the things I think that was most surprising to all of us on the committee, including myself, is that there was strong support, or is strong support for the changes that are occurring in Troutman. A lot of people were happy about the growth that we're seeing. There was also strong support for improved infrastructure, and they were interested in seeing the town get involved with that in some way. Support for more open space, support for commercial development, which I think we hear this a lot, but people wanted to see more restaurants, more commercial uses, especially on Main Street in our downtown core and near our interchanges. So 2 things the committee decided. Of course, we needed to update the map, but one thing that the committee did is once we started looking at that map is it was very obvious that it didn't really need a lot of changing. It didn't need an overhaul. It needed a few tweaks here and there. But the main thing we needed to focus on was our land use definitions, that we felt like the committee felt like there was just a need to make some changes there that would reflect what the future of the town really might be, or what we hope it will be. So those are the 2 areas we focused on. So here on the screen is a copy of our draft map. I just wanted to show this to you. The changes on this map came from public input sessions and committee discussions. Like I said, there was a lot of discussing going on this summer about this land use map. This is a side-by-side comparison. I'm hoping this makes it a little bit easier. Like I said, we did not make major changes to the map, but as you can see, I've numbered those here. 1, the Barium property, we changed that to mixed use to reflect what's actually there. 2, the downtown core, which it's really hard to see on this map, so I've got a highlight of that on the next slide. But the committee wanted to see that whole area brought into the town center land use. A lot of it was office institutional, so we did make that change. The east side of Houston Road, that area went from light industrial to medium density, low density to medium density residential. 4th, this was one of our larger changes. I'm sure a lot of you are aware that we no longer have the annexation agreement we had with Statesville has expired. So the committee really wanted us to add the property between 77 and Duck Creek Road to our land use map. So we did that as well. Tried to match the land uses that were already in that area and that were adjacent on the land use map. And then we brought properties at the intersection of Perth and State Park into the Special Lakes District that had been a medium density residential area. So just to give you an idea, that downtown core 2018 map, you can see those pink parcels there in the center that are shown as office institutional. We brought that whole area into the town center to reflect that land use there. The next thing we did is we updated our definitions. I think I mentioned that the committee really saw this as something that was important. Just to touch on the big changes that we made, so I don't want to bore y'all to death by, we don't need to read those, but one of the main things we did is we added a definition for mixed use because we didn't have one. And we have, there's Barium, but we also have a couple other smaller mixed use projects. So we added that. We added the associated zoning districts to the land use definition. So in going to that land use definition, you could see what zoning categories would fall under that land use. We added a minimum lot size to high-density residential that didn't exist before. We reduced the units per acre in medium and low-density residential. I think this is probably one of the biggest changes made in that medium-density residential. We went from 3 to 4 units per acre, and the committee recommended 2 to 3, so that was a change. And then we separated the civic, office and civic category, making them 2 individual definitions. We felt like office, civic is really things like your town hall, your parks, your churches. We felt like they needed to be separate, or the committee did. So those were the major changes made.
Excuse me,
yes,
before you
sir.
went further, can you go back to that one, please? Associated zoning districts, could you explain that one more
Sure.
time, please?
Like when I bring a rezoning before you all, and sometimes I'll say, this is being requested that we rezone this to RM, and the land use is mixed residential. Will they match? So the zoning and that land use, they go together, basically. So if a single-family residential zoning district would fall under RS, would fall under our low-density residential districts, or the HI, heavy industrial, would be more, go with our industrial land uses. So in the definition, we have those zoning categories listed there that fall, that land use would match. That was something that the committee felt like would be helpful in looking at land use.
That sounds like something like the Love convenience store situation up in Statesville, where best they could do was find something similar. Is that what she's kind of talking about doing?
That's what it sounds like.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
Sure, yeah. And that was something that, really honestly, we spent a lot of time talking about land use and even zoning. And now that you mentioned that, next steps, once we get the land use map, you all decide that this is the map that you all want for the town, we will take this information and we are going to begin working on updating our UDO. This is something that I've already begun thinking about, and we've created a list that when things come up from a staff standpoint that we think need to be changed in the ordinance, we've been creating that list. So when we get this map completed and you guys give us the go-ahead, we will start working on that in-house. So we hopefully can bring that to you all sometime later next year. So that is the end of my presentation. I did want to thank the Land Use Advisory Committee. They gave a lot of their time this summer. I listed their names there, the ones that were hung in there with us all summer. I want to thank Mr. Bryant for being the chairman of that committee as well. And then a special thanks to all of our community members who chose to participate in the process.
Great.
If you have any questions,
other
I'm happy.
questions
Yep.
for Ms. Hare?
And Mr. Bryant is here as well.
Quick question, maybe for either one of you. Every time we tweak the plan, there's always some grandfathering in, if you will. Do we anticipate a whole lot of overlap and or having, because we made a change in one area, that we're going to have to say, okay, this person or this business or whatever is grandfathered in?
That really applies, that's a very good question, and that would really apply more to zoning than land use. And I think in this situation, I think this conversation came up Monday at the meeting, that at the agenda briefing, that we don't have a lot of applications right now sitting on our desk that this would be affected by. But if I did, the ones that are on my desk right now, we would look at the old land use map and apply that land use to those applications. And then once this is adopted, anything going forward, this map would apply.
Thank you. I needed to have that reset for some folks who asked the question, so thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Hare? Okay. Any public comment regarding our future land use map? I think it was said on Monday, this is our guide. for how we plan certain areas of the town. And we look forward to considering what these implications will mean for our future land uses within our town. I would like to also thank all of the committee members, Mr. Bryant for leading that committee, and also our council members who stepped up to join that group to really do the deep dive and meeting with our community, having the meetings and taking the time, and also for staff for spending the time to go back through this process. It seems like, at least for me, we did it yesterday, although the date says 2018. But at the same time, it also feels like we might be doing this again soon. So we've got a lot of growth and activity. So again, we appreciate folks who put the time in to do that. Before we consider approval of the updated plan, I know there was some discussion on Monday to defer this until next month. Is there a desire to do so?
I would like to make that motion, sir, that we continue this until December's meeting, giving the public a little bit of time to digest the final product, continue the public hearing so that any further comments after they've had 30 days to look at it from the public, and then the council will discuss and make a decision at that time.
Okay. Good.
Can I make a request?
Which?
With the 30 days for the public, that's terrific. Hopefully we'll get some additional feedback, good feedback. I request that we put it at the beginning of the agenda next month and not the end.
Paul's ready for bed.
Can you,
or a bourbon.
Can you take our chairman's request under consideration? Will do. Motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is made to defer the final approval for the next 30 days until our December 8th meeting. Any question or comment?
So the public hearing will remain open?
Correct.
Public is still open. Yep. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
In opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. We will address that next month. Feels like we're going to have another big agenda. So, next item is the consideration for the recommendation to Idaho County Commissioners for appointment of one ETJ board. Thank you, Mr. Bryant. ETJ Board of Adjustment alternate and member. You've got the members in your packet. Turn it over to Mr. Wyatt for any comment.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. In reviewing the information since we discussed it Monday, you all had two, and reviewing the information we actually had learned that there was only one. Based off of information, we actually asked Lynn and Andrew to look. Statute says once the census came out, we had to go back and make sure, based off of our surrounding ETJ area, that we had enough ETJ persons on that board represented proportionately, and we looked at that, and I think that we do, and we don't need to add, but we thought we had two board openings, but once Kim checked, we actually only had one. That being the case, James Tabor is the name that we're asking that you all submit to the county commission to go forward and see if they would appoint. And as I expressed to you all Monday, due to an immediate family member death, and the funeral service was this evening, they could not be here either Monday or this evening to meet you. I'll be glad to discuss or answer any questions if you have. We did have another person come forward who had served on the board previous Tuesday and tell us they would like to be reconsidered, but then we got noticed, was that yesterday or this morning? That he was a little overzealous and would like to withdraw his name, so.
So it's James Taylor, Tabor?
Yes, sir.
That you're referring to?
Taylor better, you know, we get James Taylor.
Okay, yeah. So what he tell his daughter wasn't gonna be her, it was gonna be him?
She would actually like to serve on planning and zoning if that ever serves up. And
Okay.
if another position does open up, then she would still like to serve. And she's looking at helping in another capacity.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve Mr. Tabor?
Mr. Mayor, can I ask one question
Sure.
before the motion is made? Town manager, no.
Sir?
When would the commissioners, you know, I understand they, twice a year, look at these, is that still their scheduling now? It used to be, whenever you present them, they look at it month to month, then they went to, twice a year? Are they back to month to month? I mean, if we send this to them, will they
If
consider?
we have an open space and we are in need of an appointment, they will do it anytime.
Anytime, very good, that's what I
But
want.
they were trying to get the expiration dates of ones already started every 6 months.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, they'll start, but she called me the other day and asked me if I had any. I told her, yeah, that we're gonna have one, so they're gonna have that. They're gonna announce it at their meeting Tuesday night.
So as you say, if the need arises, then they will, month
Yeah,
to month,
if they
okay.
arise, they'll make those appointments.
Based on this, sir, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend to the Board of Commissioners, Mr. James Taylor. To be-
Tabor.
You got me saying. Tabor with a B. To be appointed by our Board of Commissioners as our ETJ alternate representative on the Board of Adjustment.
So that I'm clear, before we get a second. My agenda says James. It's James?
I think that was an error.
Awesome. So, Mr. James Tabor, motion was made to approve him. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is made, receives a second. Any other question or comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Please give Mr. Tabor our regrets about his situation, but also thank him for volunteering.
Yes, sir.
Next item is reports and comments from council. I'll start with Mr. Harris.
Okay, I just like to remind everyone tomorrow's Veterans Day, and remember, as a Vietnam era veteran, to be sure to think of veterans sometime tomorrow. And also coming up for town, and I think I've got the right date, is the first is the tree lighting. It's going to be in the park, right? Thursday night, December 1st. The third is our parade, 11 o'clock, and then on Sunday, the 4th, is a jingle something 5K.
Jingle 5K run.
Jingle run. So a lot of things happening in the town right now.
Thank you. Ms. Harris.
Happy birthday to the Marine Corps. Also, happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there, including lots and lots of my family members. Also, it was great to see the support tonight, either way. I was good to see so many people in here, and as the town manager said, we need a bigger place, right? But it was good to see so many people here. And also, just last thing, one of my favorite holidays, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. So we won't see each other before Thanksgiving, so I hope everybody has a safe Veterans Day tomorrow and Thanksgiving as well.
Thank you. Mr. Oxer.
I'll be brief. Happy Veterans Day. Happy birthday, Marines. God bless America. Look forward to Thanksgiving. Everybody just be sure to keep me in your thoughts as you watch my Lions get crushed on Thanksgiving. So it's become a yearly tradition. So just keep me in your thoughts. I'd appreciate it. But I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. And I agree with Councilwoman Harris. It feels very good when this room is full. And I appreciate the turnout from the community. So, thank you.
You are Lions man?
Yeah.
What a tragedy.
I have
God be
conviction.
with you.
Conviction.
Whoa. Is that the word?
Yeah, entrenched or cursed. Is more like
Mr. Hinkle, anything?
I just, kudos to what's been said 10 times over. One other thing is just, driving down the road today and saw staff, getting Christmas ready up on the Greenway, and, that kind of put me in the spirit already. I'm getting like the retail outlets, I'm starting early. They're putting their shelves, lining their shelves with Christmas products, and I'm lining my emotions with Christmas feelings. So glad to see that done, is being done, so forth, and look forward to the season. Thank you very much.
I made my comments regarding Veterans Day. It is extremely important, and for all those Marine Corps service members out there, especially happy birthday, and my days of JROTC Semper Fi, making it happen. Also, just hopefully folks will take under consideration the bad weather that could be coming our way. Again, I mentioned earlier, I did get an email from Randy Welch, who is our external relations representative for Duke Energy here, did send out some information on Tropical Storm Nicole and preparations. I would ask folks to be prepared, and hopefully we won't see any of that negative weather in our community. But if we do, I know our staff will be there, be able to support our community if they need it, and all of our first responders as well. Please be safe, and hopefully, again, we won't see anything negative occur. I also want to thank all those who went out and participated in their civic duty on Tuesday and or before in our electoral process. And so, again, it's always, for those of us who engage in the process, it feels a little bit like Super Bowl sometimes. It's long days and nights, and lots of cheering, and sometimes it's, it's kind of sad. It's almost like being a Lions fan, but anyway.
Almost.
Yeah, almost, yeah. So, but again, it's important that we participate in the process, and again, I appreciate those who did. With that, I'll turn it over to our manager and the staff.
Thank you all. Mr. Harris took, and so did Ms. Harris, take some of the things I was told to remind everyone about. To reiterate, the tree lighting is December 1st, 6 p.m. at ESC Park. Everyone is invited. It's a free family event. We are back at ESC Park this year. Christmas parade is December 3rd at 11 a.m. Town council that wishes to participate, unfortunately, we did not get the big ones that we have had, but it is the white carriage this year, so it'll be council members only that can attend if you all choose. But at 11 a.m., just to remind all of those that wish to come and spectate, it will start out at Katz and come along Eastway Drive. We are still taking applications. They are on the town website if they would like to participate, or drop in here at Town Hall to pick one up. It's free to participate. We need those submitted by November 25th. Also, we have the Jingle Run 5K that would be December 4th, the day after the parade. That will be at 3 o'clock p.m. here at Troutman Town Hall. Cost for that one is $15. However, it does include a free t-shirt, and you will get a medal
that tells what a fun time you had. As Jerry can tell, it's a fun time, and we do have a great time at that jingle run. And you can go to www.runsignup.com or come here in person to register that day, December 4th. As Mayor Pro Tem said, town staff started last week actually putting up some of our Christmas decorations. Even though I was going to celebrate with my fellow Marines today, the birthday of the Marine Corps, a little known fact and tidbit out there. Once the Marine Corps was founded in a little place called Tun Tavern, 5 days later, they went and founded the Chaplain Corps to get us out of Tun Tavern. That's a factoid. But I wound up and was summoned by some other staff that because of the anticipated storm that is coming and the winds, that we decided we had to come and do a little extra help on making sure that our garland stayed fastened and the bows stayed fastened. So a couple of us took a little extra care to make sure that the decorations around town were where they should be and that the deer stayed fastened to the ground a little better than they should. We've already had another citizen say that they wrecked because they thought those were real deer coming across again in low light, not half paying attention. But that is great that we see some people are enjoying those. We will continue to put up some decorations and replace things. We appreciate the hard work and effort that staff puts in to get that done as we celebrate the holidays. We hope that everybody does, as you all said, take time, enjoy Thanksgiving and the many things that we have to enjoy Troutman and all that our town and community has to offer, whether you're an in-town resident paying taxes or in the community area getting to join our amenities. But there will be wonderful picture-taking opportunities with the deer or in the park areas or along the trail. That park area up just north, the Greenway area just up north of Food Line right there, now that that's cleaned up, is also a great picture-taking spot now, we're told. But we appreciate it. Our chief was not here this evening, and I think I'm starting to catch a little bit of his as my sinuses are starting to play tricks. But everybody do take care with the weather. But that's all I have. I appreciate all the work that all the departments are doing, but as you all heard Lynn's reports, her department is staying a little extra, and we have a few more projects before the end of the year.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Lynn made me think. Now, maybe I shouldn't ask this in public, but you're smiling, so.
We might answer you in public.
Well, if you don't feel comfortable, just say, I'll talk to you later.
I'll talk
How
to
is
you
your
later.
assistant coming along in the planning department?
I'm very comfortable answering. Are you talking about our new code enforcement officer?
Excuse me?
Are you talking about our new code enforcement
Andrew.
officer?
Yes, code enforcement, yes.
Shane?
Oh, he's doing
Shane.
great.
Oh, Shane?
Yes,
what's
he,
Shane?
he is doing fantastic.
He's getting all kinds of complaints.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing a good, exactly, doing a good job. But-
And I actually told him today, I said, you know, one of the biggest personality traits that makes a good code enforcement officer is they have to be very self-motivated and be able to manage themselves, and he's amazing. I mean, he just has the personality for it, so it's going real well. Thank you for asking.
And I will echo Lynn. He is doing wonderful, and when I say he's getting all kind of complaints, I say that with pride, because he, as I had forewarned you all, when we went with a full-time code enforcement officer, it would be that, and some of them is learning curves, but in all sincerity, it's a buzz around town that how dare he. But let me also say with compassion, he sees some of these situations that I forewarned you all about, that it would be sometimes situations that people might not be able to afford to remedy a situation, and he is already learning how to try to remedy those to where it's truly a situation to where somebody can't afford to handle maybe a grass mowing or something. So that's the part definitely tells us we hired the right guy. Because if somebody's truly in that situation, then we are not wanting to go out and inflict further pain. And he's exceeded expectations in several areas.
You say his last name is again?
I'm not telling.
We didn't have enough.
Well, it's a shame. It's a shame.
Any other question for Mr. White? What's that? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate all you do, and I did get a chance to get over to the park and see the trash receptacle, if you will. That looked like it was a project. So tell Emily good work, and also the electrical box over there. It just wasn't thrown up on the, in the grass or anything. It was well done. So good work, and I'm sure that again was not a simple project. So good stuff.
I would like to add, now that you said getting around to look at things, I would like to point out, because we've got a couple of our citizens that pay attention to detail. As we have mentioned to you all, but those that are watching our meeting this late hour, our Christmas wreaths and balls, that normally the lit balls that go on the various trees, we are having to reposition those this year because of a couple of the trees that I mentioned to you all at the agenda meeting Monday that had to be taken down and or removed. We couldn't space those this time the way that we normally have. So instead of having 2 or 3 here and then go several hundred yards without any, we have decided to reposition those so it would have more of an effect in areas. So we are decorating with what we think is the best appeal, and we apologize for those that thinks we have skipped trees or we did something different than last year. And we have, and we are doing different than last year, but it's not because we tried to change it. It's out of necessity because some of those trees are not there.
All right, thank you. If there's nothing else,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
awesome. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition, please hang around. The rest of us will be gone.
Oh, help yourself.
So
I buy in bulk now.